Good afternoon. I'm Eula Clark, Mayor of the City of Stuart, Florida, calling to order a regular meeting of the Stuart City Commission, October 11th, 2021, at our commission chambers located at 121 Southwest Flagler Avenue in beautiful downtown Stuart, Florida, along the St. Lucie River. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Mayor Clark,
Yes?
Vice Mayor Matheson,
Here.
Commissioner Bruner,
Here.
Commissioner McDonald,
Here.
Commissioner Meyer.
Here.
As we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, let us think fall, even though it's a little bit warm outside. And let us think of all those families who may have lost members and who are thinking of the holidays coming up. And of course, let us think of our first responders and our troops. Today's Pledge of Allegiance will be led by our Vice Mayor, Mr. Merritt Matheson.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So at the City of Stuart, for the past 4 years or so, we've had an arts moment, about 3 to 5 minutes, and we asked local artists from all over the Treasure Coast, or basically anywhere. Sometimes we have visiting artists who are at the Cultural Center or someplace else. And we asked them to come and do a little presentation for us. So tonight we have Mr. Scott Basin, who's a stone sculptor. And I think I met him through something around town. And I gave his name to Mary and I said, please. And I had called him once and talked to him, but it's been a long time now. And so we finally got it together, and we thank you. This is your time. We appreciate it. Please share with us for the arts moment. So, yes? Yes? The whole city is open to you.
The whole city?
Yes, sir.
I guess I'll just do this. As Mayor Clark said, my name is Scott Buccina. I'm a local sculptor. Been in the area. I live in Hope Sound for over 20 years, 25 years. So today we're going to be talking about my new pieces here that I've been working on. I'm originally from Maine, where I went to college, undergraduate for art, and moved on to FSU. Can I say, sorry. Moved on to FSU for my master's, where I met my wife, and then we moved on to West Palm Beach. And I opened a studio there, a teaching studio and sculpture studio down by the Kravis Center. Was there for probably 15 years or so, till I found a spot in my own hometown in Hope Sound. My current studio is at the Marine Village in downtown Hope Sound, where some of you probably have been in to get your boats fixed or your motor fixed. So that's pretty local, as good as you can get local, I guess, making fish in a marine yard. So that's pretty cool. So like I said, I've been there probably a good 13 to 15 years. And my website is up, where you don't always have to look at me while I talk. It's better that you don't look at me, actually. It'll scroll through some pieces. My wife designed the website, so she practically runs the whole show. All I have to do is make the art. So, what I brought today are some of the pieces I've been working on. Well, let me tell you about the process first. I did my first sculpture probably around 1990, where I bought some chisels. Even though I mastered in sculpture, I had never done a piece of stone. And I went to Montoya, which is a famous place back in the day, Southern Boulevard, bought some stone and some chisels and carved a rock. And from there I knew this is what I'm meant to do. Sometimes things hit you and you just know this is the life for me, this is what I'm going to be doing. So she's got up there, that's one of my first big triple tail, I call them. That's a raw piece of stone right there, probably 300-pound slab. And that basically is a sketch of the piece on a slab. And from there, just like Renaissance days, you have to have an army of men come in and chip that down for you while you sit and watch them. That's how Michelangelo did it anyway. But nowadays we have electricity. So my job from there is to remove all the negative areas and leave that drawing intact. And she's going to go on to the next picture and show you. There it is in my back studio yard, kind of roughed out. You can still see the lines from where I drew on there. That's just a process of slowly removing all that negative stone to get to that point. And the next picture is going to show you the finished product at an art show, which is this stone that I have here today, which is called calcite. It's in the onyx family. And I've really been concentrating on it because I'm now so into my Stuart area marine life. I've even done a sailfish this year. Sometimes you just get on a roll, and all I can think of is what's the next fish I'm going to make. You know, even though I've done tons of abstracts in my career. And what I've got today is a current representation of what I would probably show at the next art show. The new thing I'm doing, you probably can still hear me, right?
You can take it out, sir.
This is teak wood. This is called a teak skin. I've been using a lot of teak from Indonesia and incorporating it with these fish I'm doing. And this is an amazing piece of natural teak root. This thing was actually underground at one time. So they harvest these teak trees, and sometimes I'll get the whole root structure that's as big as a tree and put a bunch of fish on it. So this is my latest, newest piece, just finished. We'll be going to the next art show. And over here is a representation of pieces that I show, that I'll have at every show. I have, you know, these are the small things I do. Might be a seahorse, might be a fish, it might be two fish, but I do like a smaller line of work, big fish. You can see the light coming through these. And that's a big seahorse. So this is an example of what you would see at an art show. Now, I do the downtown Stuart show for about 20 years. That's probably where Mayor Clark met me. I really like it. I like doing my own hometown because I've got a lot of friends here, and it's nice to be able to sell your pieces to people that know you, local, and that want your work in their house. So that show is going to be coming up again, and like it every year at the end of February. And also, Hope Sound has a new show now. Not as new as this one, but some of you might have gone to it. It's Super Bowl weekend right on Bridge Road, downtown Hope Sound. And that's starting to become a really popular show. So those are the two times locally you can see me, right in our own area. And let me think of something else. Have I hit the 5-minute mark? Okay, now the jokes. No. Oh, what a beautiful crowd, let me tell you.
Thank you so much.
I think that pretty much covers it. And I've got some brochure, a little mini brochure out there that tells you a little bit about my background and some business cards on your way out. And I'd love you all take one home with you and go to my website. And my website's got my schedule on it where you can see me throughout the year. And I really appreciate me being able to show my work here. It's been an honor.
What's the timeline on the sailfish? What's the timeline on the sailfish? The sailfish.
I have a sailfish. He was too big to bring in here.
Excellent.
Yes.
Did you have one done?
I have one on a big, like seashell boulder rock. It looks like a big oyster or clamshell, and the sailfish is about that long. Never been, as far as I know, it's never been attempted in stone because of that sail and whatever you call that thing that comes out here.
Bill.
Is that the bill?
Mm-hmm.
So I have to make that separately that locks into the sailfish itself and the heart in that sail, which is a delicate thing to do in stone. So I attempted that this year. I don't think it's on the website, but if you come to my art show, you will see it.
Excellent.
But one of these days, we'll have a new city hall, which will have a place for sailfish. So
If you're real interested in seeing it, you leave me your number and I can text you a picture of it.
Yeah, I'd like to
Right
see it.
down on the back of this.
thank you for
I
your
do
time.
have it somewhere in my pictures in my phone.
Your phone number is actually the price.
Thank you so much.
Too bad we could show our beautiful smiles. You know what I mean? Real pictures.
Thank you. I don't know if you need a break to take these out
Yeah,
or
just
you.
give me 2 or 3 minutes so I can unload, okay?
Okay, thank you.
I would appreciate it.
Help them unload.
I'll help him.
Just don't drop anything.
What do you want us to do? Do you need some help? Do you want us to help carry stuff for you? Would you like us to help carry some stuff for you?
No, it's actually just a process of loading it all up in that box.
You should see me in my voice pack.
Yeah.
That's not gonna fit there.
Thank you so much.
I'd love to see a picture of it.
Yeah, it's a great piece.
I can't afford it, I'll tell you that up front.
Setting on up an art show is pretty much basic. It's to do the opposite of what you did to set up to tear down. Shortcuts. I know. You guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So this is, we promote the arts of the city of Stuart. Thank you so much.
Put it in there.
Our next item is,
See how easy that was? That one's in there permanently. Okay, go ahead.
thanks. Okay, thank you. Well, we're fine.
This, like I said, there's a process.
Mary, who's here for City Government Week?
It's me.
Paula Christensen.
I'm receiving that one, Mayor.
Okay, so Paula is not, Ms. Christensen's not gonna be here? You'll be
No.
here? You'll be doing it?
Yes. Go ahead, Mayor, you can read.
Okay, so our next item is Florida City Government Week. And that's from October 18th through October 24th. And at this time, I'm gonna have the city clerk tell us a little bit about what she's been doing to get us involved in Florida Government Week.
Okay, we are coordinating with the school district to have each one of the commissioners and city manager and any city staff who may be interested to read to students pre-K through second grade the book from the Florida League of Cities called The City That Talks.
Do you have that? Oh, Jimmy's not here. You don't have it's the city that talks about,
All the
how we coordinate
services in the
streets
city
and
of
water and services for our cities. And we have a local Treasure Coast League of Cities, and we have our own Commissioner Mike Meyer, who is going to receive our proclamation. If we could have Mr. Mortel read the proclamation.
The Proclamation, Florida City Government Week, October 18th through 24, 2021. Whereas, city government is the government closest to most citizens and the one with the most direct daily impact upon its residents. Municipal government provides services and programs that enhance the quality of life for residents, making their city their home. And whereas, city government is administered for and by its citizens and is dependent upon public commitment to and understanding of its many responsibilities. And whereas, city government officials and employees share the responsibility to pass along the understanding of public services and their benefits. And whereas, Florida City Government Week offers an important opportunity for elected officials and city staff to spread the word to all citizens of Florida that they can shape and influence this branch of government. And whereas the Florida League of Cities and its member cities, of which Stuart is a member, have joined together to teach citizens about municipal government through a variety of activities. Now therefore, I, Eula R. Clark, Mayor of the City of Stuart, Florida, do hereby proclaim October 18th through October 24th, 2021 as Florida City Government Week in the City of Stuart, Florida, and encourage all citizens, city government officials, and employees to participate in events that recognize and celebrate Florida City Government Week, as well as encourage educational partnerships between city government and schools, civic groups, and other organizations.
Thank you. And so, Mr. Meyer, would you like to go down or we'll just exchange right here?
Why don't we just do it here?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Pass it on, thanks. Would you like to say a few words?
We don't need all the pomp and circumstance. Well, thank you very much, and I humbly receive this proclamation on behalf of the Treasure Coast Regional League of Cities, of which we are a member city, in place of the wonderful efforts of our director, Patricia Christensen, who also works with the Florida League directly, and on behalf of our president, Councilwoman Jolene Caraballo of the city of Port St. Lucie. I'll just say, I really appreciate the support that this board has given to me with this organization. Our league, our regional league, has really in the last few years risen up the ranks, as it were, in the Florida League. And thanks to some of our ideas and our organization, we have actually helped the league come up with new tools and programming for citizen engagement, for teaching citizens about the importance of home rule and educating them about the efforts of the legislature year after year to undermine home rule. And so this year, it's exciting that under the new leadership of the new executive director for the Florida League, they'll be rolling out all new tools and an advocacy roadshow. So we're hoping to get that in front of this body here for our citizens. So thanks again for the support. It's great, and City of Stuart is doing big things up there in Tallahassee. So
Thank you, Commissioner Meyer. And for those of you commissioners who have not signed up for 8 or 9 o'clock or some other time at Felix Williams or J.D. Parker or at Gertrude Walden to read and to express with the children, department heads, commissioners, citizens who are interested, please share and let the city clerk know when you'd like to go. Most of the times are 8 a.m. or 7:40 or 9 a.m. So it's going to be interesting. Thank you so much, Mr. Meyer. Our next proclamation is proclaiming Gold Star Mothers and Family Day. This was actually started in September, and it goes on. So we're not really a little bit late. We're just right in the middle of things because there's always a time to honor our parents who have lost someone in a war. So this is very, very important to take the time out and to do this. City Attorney, please.
I should also mention that the City of Stuart doesn't do these proclamations automatically, that in fact, the different entities request the city to do the proclamations, and in this instance, the Gold Star Mothers application didn't come in until it was too late to be on the September 27th meeting. Proclamation, Gold Star Mothers and Families Day, September 26, 2021. Whereas in 1936, the 74th Congress declared that the last Sunday in September shall hereafter be designated and known as Gold Star Mother's Day, and in 2016 was renamed Gold Star Mothers and Families Day. And whereas the brave men and women of our armed forces represent the very best of our nation, matched only by the families who walk beside them in their service. And whereas it is our sacred duty to recognize the unending and immeasurable sacrifices our military families make in support of their loved ones and for our country, and we are cognizant of the fortitude they show during the anguish of knowing that their hero may never return home. And whereas for more than 2 centuries, many of our brave service members have paid the ultimate sacrifice while ensuring our nation remains the land of the free, and we recognize the sacrifice all Gold Star family members make when a father, mother, brother, sister, son, daughter, or other loved one dies in service to our nation. And whereas the true strength and success of our armed forces is found in the love, support, and unity of our nation's military families, and this is reflected best in our country's inspirational Gold Star mothers and families whose ability to overcome, persist, prevail, and in turn enrich the lives of others exemplifies the true American spirit. Now therefore, I, Eula R. Clark, Mayor of the City of Stuart, do hereby proclaim September 26, 2021 as Gold Star Mothers and Families Day in the city of Stuart, Florida, and encourage all citizens to hold these families in our hearts, remember them in our prayers, support them in our words and deeds, and join them in honoring their hero's ultimate sacrifice.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Ms. Maitland? And for Miss Maitland, I'm a personal friend of Miss Maitland's. And is anybody else here with you? And of course, you'll be able to say something. Hi there. Yep. We're smiling too.
How the kids?
Yes, Fort Rucker.
If you'd like to go to the podium.
For those that you,
You can go to the podium. Or you can look at us so they'll
Okay.
hear you. Thank you.
That way you'll be on camera.
at least it's a shorter one. That's okay, you can see me, sort of. For those that you don't know, my name is Joanne Maitland. I'm the national president of an organization that nobody wants to be a member of, American Gold Star Mothers. We are the chartered organization by Congress that supports Gold Star mothers and our families. And what we do is we work with veterans and other Gold Star families to get through our grief. Our founder believed that grief was not to be dwelled in, but to be used for something greater than ourselves, and to continue the service of our children by remembering them through our service. So I thank you all that are in here that have served. Eula has children that are serving, and if you are a veteran or have children that are serving, we appreciate you to no end. Because of you, we are free. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next proclamation is for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Mr. Mortel?
Proclamation Breast Cancer Awareness Month, October 2021. Whereas breast cancer has the second highest mortality rate in women and is the second most diagnosed cancer. And whereas every 2 minutes a woman is diagnosed with breast cancer, and 30% of new women's cancer diagnosis will be for breast cancer. And whereas 1 out of every 8 women in the United States will be diagnosed with breast cancer during her lifetime. And whereas by the end of December 2021, there will be an estimated 281,550 new cases of invasive breast cancer diagnosed and 49,290 cases of non-invasive, for a total of 330,840 new cases. And whereas men can also get breast cancer, and an estimated 2,650 men will be diagnosed with it in 2021. And whereas as of January 2021, there were 3.8 million breast cancer survivors in the United States. Now therefore, I, Eula R. Clark, Mayor of the City of Stuart, do hereby proclaim October 2021 as Breast Cancer Awareness Month in the City of Stuart, Florida, and encourage all women and men to learn more about how this disease may affect their lives and to take the necessary steps for early detection and prevention. I urge our citizens to recommit themselves to standing by our survivors and their families and support worthy organizations working tirelessly to find a cure.
Thank you so much. Some of you know that I wear hats as one of my things. Today is a day when we have to wear hats, shoes, everything. We're going to be wearing pink and red, and we're so happy that so many things have come up on our agenda. Ms. Faulkner, you're here for the, and then anybody who's here with you can come and get the proclamation. You can take a picture. And everybody will have a chance to speak for 20 minutes each.
The
good news is 99% of all breast cancer is detectable early and curable early. We have, since 1989 to today, 42% decline in breast cancer deaths. That's a huge percentage, but that doesn't mean it's over. We still need to work, and we're rewarded by all of the local communities that have come together to help support the American Cancer Society in their fight against breast cancer. Zeta Tau Alpha is my national sorority. We are the national sponsor for survivors. We have a lot of survivors out there, and that's who we support, because it can come back, but early detection can cure almost all the time, 99%. So I appreciate all of your support. We have flyers available. We have a walk at Tradition on October 23rd, and if you want to either join our walk or just donate, we'll have flyers out there for you and postcards, and we would love to have you out there.
Thank you so
Thank you very,
much.
very much.
Thank you. The next proclamation is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And Mr. Mortel, could you please read the proclamation?
Proclamation Domestic Violence Awareness Month, October 2021. Whereas domestic violence transcends all ethnic, racial, and socioeconomic boundaries. It perpetrates abuse, their victims physically, mentally, emotionally, and economically, and the effects of their attacks are far-reaching, weakening the very core of our county. And whereas domestic violence is particularly devastating because it so often occurs in the privacy of the home, a place meant to represent shelter and security. Because domestic violence usually takes place in private, many Americans may not realize how widespread it is right here in our own county. The cost of domestic violence to Martin County has been estimated at over $14.6 million per year. And whereas during the month of October, Americans should contemplate the scars that domestic violence leaves on our society and what each of us can do to prevent it. Our prosecutors, law enforcement officers, and victim advocates have worked together with Safe Space to reduce domestic violence in our county and assist victims and their families. And whereas each year in the United States, more than 10 million women and men experience physical abuse by their intimate partners. Many of these victims experience repeat abuse over the course of a year. As unsettling as these statistics are, it is also disturbing to realize that 90% of children of domestic violence victims are eyewitnesses to these attacks, and that domestic violence may be the single major precursor to fatalities from child abuse and neglect in the United States. And whereas, through education, awareness, and enforcement of the law, we are striving to prevent domestic violence and sexual assault. Public action awareness will create a society that promotes strong values, fosters a safe and loving home environment for every family, and refuses to tolerate domestic violence in any form. Now, therefore, I, Eula R. Clark, Mayor of the City of Stuart, Florida, do hereby proclaim October 2021 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in the City of Stuart, Florida, and urge all citizens to actively participate in the scheduled activities and programs sponsored by Safe Space Incorporated and work toward the elimination of personal and institutional violence against adults and children.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mortel. We have Dr. Teresa Albazul here from Safe Space, and they have all kinds of special things to do. You want to do your special thing now, or have us come down later? Let me give you guys the proclamation, and then you can.
Oh, yeah, you can.
Yeah, you can.
You can do it.
I can't wait to watch it.
Dance on really good.
Before you go, please, I just wanted to get one for the city.
Good afternoon, guests and members of the commission, Madam Mayor. My name is Dr. Teresa Alviso, and I am honored to serve as Chief Executive Officer of Safe Space. On behalf of Safe Space, staff members, the board of directors, and most importantly, the victims of domestic violence and the children whom we serve every day, I would like to extend our sincere appreciation to the City of Stuart City Commission for recognizing October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I wish I was here today to tell you that the incidence of domestic violence in this beautiful paradise that we call home has been decreasing. But the opposite is the reality. We must recognize that a domestic violence pandemic has existed long before the COVID-19 outbreak. This public health issue has only exacerbated even more the incidence of intimate partner violence. We should not and cannot remain silent about how these criminal acts impact members of our communities. During fiscal year 2021, Safe Space provided services to 157 residents of Martin County, consisting of 105 women, 18 men, and 34 children. These individuals received close to 1,900 outreach program services from our domestic violence advocates, including our Invest advocate who specializes in serving victims at risk for high mortality, and who served 58 participants who were threatened with homicide. Given the rise in the number of victims of intimate partner violence from Martin County and the City of Stuart seeking our services, we launched a concerted effort to refurbish agency-owned space right here in Stuart to establish a trauma-informed outreach services center. This project is being made possible by a grant received from Impact 100 Martin, which will allow us to expand the number of victims and survivors of domestic violence whom we serve through our non-residential outreach services. We believe it's time to stop the silence and openly address the overall impact that domestic violence has on our society and how we should address this historically taboo subject. In addition to the evident humanistic and psychological effects on the victims, there is also an enormous economic impact on society from domestic violence. We estimate that the cost of domestic violence in Martin County amounts to almost $14 million annually. This estimate considers the number of DV incidents reported by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, the associated medical costs, mental health services, loss of employer productivity, and law enforcement costs. These statistics are no surprise when we know that nearly 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner in the United States. 20 people per minute every single day. That 4 women are murdered by their partners on a daily basis. And a research study found that children exposed to violence in the home were 15 times more likely to be physically and or sexually assaulted than the national average. I believe that we would all agree that violence is wrong and must be prosecuted accordingly. Not only are the direct victims impacted, but also the family members, the taxpayers, our economy, and the smallest and most vulnerable are children. Domestic violence is a serious national, societal, and economic issue that everyone has a role in eradicating. Often witnesses to domestic abuse are afraid to speak up or to get involved. I therefore ask that each one of us here do our best to talk about this serious issue as we increase awareness among the community at large about the high incidence of intimate partner violence and its impact on the well-being of the City of Stuart. Many of you are familiar with our annual Walk a Mile in Her Shoes event, so please join us Saturday, November 13th at the Stuart Martin Air Show as we celebrate the 10th anniversary of Safe Space Walk a Mile in Her Shoes, an activity that helps raise awareness about the seriousness of this malady that is intimate partner violence. We hope that everyone here today will join us and participate in this annual commemorative event. So please place 11/13 on your calendar and join us at 11 a.m. for our 10th anniversary walk. Let us unite, please. Let us unite as we ratify our commitment to the victims of domestic abuse and their children, that they are not invisible, that life can be different, that it is not too late, and that safe space programs and services are here to support them as they transition to an independent life free of violence. Thank you for your support and for this proclamation.
Thank you. Now, do you want us to take a picture in the red shoes?
Thank you very much.
Thanks. So I'll invite the commissioners to hobble down.
Look, I'm walking in these shoes today or later. Where do you want it?
And
Now or later?
there should be no laughing or clapping. Oh, God. I have my own red shoes I could have worn.
You guys act like this is something new. Barrett's got it. The toe out to the side.
Becky, going over.
No, we gotta have the boys on the outside so they can see past the.
There we go.
Did you do a merit?
Why isn't she?
Look at that.
Up here?
I have bad knees.
Doctor, in a couple of safe space, can you come up with us, please, on the edges?
You really wanna, give us
Now you have to walk a mile. I've done that, right? Is it an actual full mile? Because I might rethink
Oh my gosh, Jan! Can we just get one with the city attorney or the city manager?
I got it on video.
Do we give these back now?
Yes, you can give them back.
Hoping to keep them for the weekend.
I know. So much to
I don't know if I wanna give them back.
We're just taking a minute to give back.
Today's Friday was gonna be a lot more interesting.
They get a little bit. Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
No, thank you guys. Thank you very much for this. Thank you. No, thank you. It's not easy.
We need to, Madam Mayor, we need to revisit my contract.
When you walk that mile in these shoes, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, really. I think I got everybody. No, thank you all so much for your support.
Thank you.
Why couldn't it just be like a sensible wedge or something, you know? Jeez.
Heels. Maybe next year they'll come up with a different kind of shoe. Clogs. Something
High-heeled clog.
stable, yeah.
Clogs.
So this is why we're in Martin County and we can do all these things, because we not only enjoy our good nature, but we think of ways that we can improve our community. And we have a proclamation for Manufacturing Month, and we'll be hearing from our business area of our community. So, Mr. Mortel?
Whereas the City of Stuart is diversifying its economy and strengthening its workforce by collaborating with local, regional, and state partners to improve its business climate and at-place assets where good jobs are created and businesses are encouraged to grow. And whereas manufacturing is a key industry in Stuart with a gross regional product of nearly $157 million and an average annual worker earnings of $40,210. And whereas Recognizing October as Manufacturing Month is an opportunity to celebrate the manufacturers who call the City of Stuart home, educate the community on the important role they play in our local economy, and inspire the next generation of manufacturing talent to work locally. And whereas the City of Stuart commends and supports them, along with the business assistance and economic development organizations involved in helping them start up, grow, remain, and come to our community. Now therefore, I, Eula R. Clark, Mayor of the City of Stuart, do hereby proclaim October 2021 as Manufacturing Month in the City of Stuart, Florida, and urge all citizens to join in recognizing the value of our manufacturers and the products they deliver locally, regionally, nationally, and around the world.
Thank you, Mr. Mortel. Ms. Joan K. Goodrich, could you please join me? Congratulations. We have other members of the board. Please come on.
Dwayne Wright, for Manufacturing Specialist, Small Business Development Center, and Peter and Jana Stouffer with Seatour Control Systems, a manufacturer here in Stuart, and Jenny Sardo with the Business Development.
Please come on.
Get a little closer for the picture. One, two, three.
Oh, hold on. Let me do this.
3, 2, 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, this is the time when everybody gets to talk again. No, I'm just kidding. Go until you can talk. Introduce yourself.
Yes, please introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Jana and Peter Stolper. We own Seatour Control
We
Systems.
didn't hear that, so you have to do it in the mic.
Okay, sorry. Better?
Yes, thanks.
Okay. Jana and Peter Stolper, we're owners of Seatour Control Systems located here in Stuart. We manufacture propulsion equipment for the marine industry. We've been manufacturing in Martin County for almost 30 years now, all marine industry based, and the support we get from the county and the Business Development Board people has been very substantial in helping us grow. We've been growing, and it's an excellent place to call home, so we're very happy for your recognition and your support.
Thank you, thank you. And we have a new director, we have new board. Thank you.
My name is Dwayne Wright. I'm with Global Source International, my consulting firm, and I recently came on board with the SBDC, helping the area manufacturers in the Treasure Coast area and assisting them as they grow their businesses.
Thank you,
Thank you.
thanks.
Welcome.
Thanks, thank you, welcome. Joan?
And again, on behalf of the Business Development Board, your economic development partner, we were so pleased that Jana and Peter, rushed over here from their facility. Again, you heard 30 years. They are sharing their products from around the world. They're in Asia, Taiwan. They've got affiliated offices in Europe, Australia, South America, to name a few. Again, Peter has been a visionary in our marine industry for a very long time, and we couldn't be more pleased that this company, who continues to grow here in our community, also continues to receive extraordinary recognition by many in the industry for what they're doing. Again, and Dwayne wanted you to meet Dwayne personally. He's a new member, as he mentioned, of the Small Business Development Center, but he's had his company here in Martin County for quite some time. As he continues to accelerate the growth of manufacturing across and service markets across several different industries, again, just an extraordinary talent that we now have to work with our local manufacturing businesses as he seeks to help them really grow their sales performance. Again, they're just a representation, just like Paradigm Precision is too, of the 450 manufacturers who call our community home. And just some of the list of products that we are manufacturing in our community: aircraft parts and equipment, we already heard about. Some of the boats and the marine accessories, medical, dental, hospital equipment, air purification equipment, fabricated metal products, easy for me not to say properly, food and beverages, sporting goods, toys, and more. We're just so very thankful that they call our community home. They're employing our locals with great jobs. They give back to our community, and it's certainly one of the reasons why they make us distinctive by design. Thank you
Thank you
again
so
for your
much.
time
Thank
with
you
us.
so much. Thank you very much. And I must say, maybe it's a season, even though it's COVID, we give money to the Business Development Board, is it? And this year, we've seen more of them and heard more of them, of all the things that they're doing in the community to help businesses of all levels, young people who are struggling, who want to learn how to start a business. They've been going out, they've been helping us with our job fairs. So this year, they've really brought home the bacon, so to speak, and they've been helping us to get things going in the business area and making sure that we have a product that is worthy of our community, and that we're showing that everything helps to get business going and to get manufacturing into our community and maintain it here. So thank you very much, Joan. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Thanks. Good job. As we've been quiet at home, we've all been on our computers and on the internet, and we worry every day about cybersecurity. This month is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Mr. Martell, could you please read the proclamation?
Proclamation Cybersecurity Awareness Month, October 2021. Whereas the City of Stuart recognizes the importance in identifying, responding to, and protecting against cyber threats that may have significant impact to our individual and collective security and privacy. And whereas critical infrastructure sectors are increasingly reliant on information systems to support financial services, energy, telecommunications, transportation, utilities, healthcare, and emergency response systems. And whereas the Stop, Think, Connect campaign serves as the national public awareness campaign implemented through a coalition of private companies, nonprofit and government organizations, as well as academic institutions working together to increase the understanding of cyber threats and empowering the American public to be safer and more secure online. And whereas maintaining the security of cyberspace is a shared responsibility in which each of us, elected officials, city staff, and community members, has a critical role to play. And awareness of computer security essentials will improve the security of the City of Stuart's information, infrastructure, and economy. And whereas the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, and the National Cybersecurity Alliance, NCSA, have chosen this year's theme as Do Your Part, Be Cyber Smart, which encourages individuals and organizations to own their role in protecting their part of cyberspace, stressing personal accountability and the importance of taking proactive steps to enhance cybersecurity. Now, therefore, I, Eula R. Clark, Mayor of the City of Stuart, do hereby proclaim October 2021 as Cybersecurity Awareness Month in the City of Stuart, Florida, and encourage all citizens to learn about cybersecurity and put that knowledge into practice in their homes, schools, workplaces, and businesses.
Thank you, and for this award, we have an inside job, our own IT department, Darren Duke.
Do you have any examples of people that failed?
Mike Mortel. Mike Mortel.
You can blame it on Amazon.
1, 2, 3.
Thank you. Darren has a big speech, so we'll listen to it.
I've got 10 minutes probably.
Please click on the random link to hear it.
Thank you, everybody. Darren Duke, Technology Services Director for the record. The City of Stuart is probably has more experience with the rationale behind cybersecurity than most organizations represented today in here, and I just want to kind of give you some statistics that I pulled today from our own security appliances. First, a number from CISA, which is mentioned in here. There's a ransomware attack, an active ransomware attack every 9 minutes in the United States of America. 99% of those do not originate from overseas. They originate from inside the United States. So it is a shared responsibility to protect our own infrastructure because that's what's being used to hackers. You know, Iran, North Korea, take your pick, don't directly attack us. They attack an American computer network, but then attacks us. That's how we got hit back in 2019. So some statistics about this. Since September the 6th of this year, our firewall has stopped 440,000 intrusion attempts. Some breakdowns of that. That's 12,000 per day. That's 500 per hour. It's 8 per minute, which is just over 1 a second. So as you can see, the more education we have, the more knowledge we have, the more shared responsibility we take. That's the only way we reduce that number. And thankfully, the federal government and the state governments are now taking it seriously enough that they're starting these campaigns. And this is actually the 4th Cybersecurity Awareness Month. It's the first one we've actively been involved in, but hopefully that'll change in this and that'll become an annual event. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll now move on to our presentations for our Employee Service Awards. And I'm going to go down and stay down. Nicole Johnson, 5 years. And Nicole.
I would just like to share, I have to get on my tippy toes. I can barely read. I would just like to share that I've truly enjoyed working for the City of Stuart over the past 5 years. Working for the City of Stuart is amazing. I love working here. And just thank you so much for the opportunities and appreciation and the continued support. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our next 5-year award is to Devon Taylor in the police department. And you're not here, so Chief, we'll pass this on. Would you like to give their speech?
Thank you for the 5 years of service.
Our next is for none other than Michelle Vickers, 15 years. Yay, Michelle. I love it. So nice. Michelle gets the whole. Thank you.
Yeah. How do you keep David on track?
Another 15 years, Jonathan Honeycutt, Fire Department.
Hey, Jonathan. You don't look like Jonathan. You don't need a photo with him.
He wants the goodies inside of there.
Fire Chief, you want to come in?
Yeah, how does that work? The fire chief gets to stand outside. And
Yeah.
Can I give it 10 minutes? How long do I have?
Minute per year.
Reel it in, reel it in.
Next one is
Corky, Corky,
Corky.
Corky.
He's just trying to feel what's in here.
Mary will answer all questions.
congratulations. Thank you.
And last but not least, we're going to have to clear the room. We're going to ask our city clerk to come down for 20 years of service. She has been advised that she has to give a speech or else.
Somebody left theirs up here.
Mine, that's mine.
Oh, okay. Well, I can't believe it's been 20 years.
Oh, she's got it written down.
I do. You called me out. And I can't open it. No. That's part, that's right, that's right. Well, I just wanted to say that in this past 20 years, I've had the pleasure of working for and with some of the most amazing people, many of which I'm proud to call my friends. In my roles, I have been fortunate enough to learn about public works, water conservation, recycling. I even got to be a mascot. So done a lot of fun things. That was Dave Peters' fault.
It's weird, Dave.
But now in the role as city clerk for the past 3.5 years, I do love my job. I enjoy working with all of you, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Mary is one of our most important persons at the city of Stuart in terms of keeping our record and in terms of where she stands between the governor and all the heads of our counties. City clerk is right up there with people who basically keep law and order along with our police. So she's right up there. The city clerk is very, very important to the functioning of our city. Our next is the employee spotlight. You ready?
I am. I'm here twice in one day. You don't see me for 2.5 years. And then twice in one day. I'm like a bus. So again, Darren Duke, Director, Technology Services for the record. It is my pleasure to announce the October 2021 Employee Spotlight is none other than Mike DeFrank. He is at the back there. He's going to stand up right now. And I want to thank Jan for putting this together from HR. She's done a splendid job. Quote, I've always been interested in technology, says Mike DeFrank. Mike hails from a generation that grew up with Atari and Commodore 64. Yay! Where floppy disks ruled and graphics were quote-unquote old school. I think he means blocky. Originally from South Korea, Mike was adopted at age 3 and was raised by his parents in Connecticut along with his sister. He grew up at the change of seasons and enjoyed winter activities including snowmobile. You live in the wrong place, dude. To this day, Mike still enjoys the cooler weather. In 1989, the family relocated to Port St. Lucie, where he attended Port St. Lucie High School and then joined the Marine Corps upon graduation. Mike was originally stationed in California, but in his final year, he was stationed in Okinawa, Japan, where he was able to experience living in a different culture. After fulfilling his 4 years of active service, he returned to Florida. He had been a longtime friend of city police dispatcher and still current police dispatcher, Shavella Whitehead, and she encouraged him to apply for a part-time computer programmer position with the Stuart Police Department. Former Police Chief Ed Morley quickly recognized Mike's potential, abilities, and 4 months later, Mike was hired in a full-time position. He celebrated 20 years of service last December. That's a long time in IT, by the way. That's like quadruple dog years. So he's like 150 in computer terms. On a home front, Mike and his wife, Serena, have a 15-year-old daughter and 3 adult sons. They recently became grandparents and expecting their second grandson soon. Mike, whatever Mike takes to put, whatever facial regime he has, he can sell, because he doesn't look like he should be a grandparent. I forgot where I was now. Mike is a self-proclaimed car buff and really digs muscle cars. His favorite, his old Camaro. When not competing DIY projects given to him around the house by his wife, you can find Mike in the world of RPGs or role-playing games on his Xbox or PC. When asked about his proudest achievement and accomplishment at the city, Mike said, quote unquote, the virus. He was referring to a ransomware attack of 2019. Somewhat ironically, it's Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Mike reflected that day and shared that he was called in because several police employees were experiencing computer problems with their systems over the weekend. Once on site, Mike knew right away what was happening and began shutting down the systems. He quickly called the city's technology staff and then began calling surrounding entities to warn them. So it doesn't just affect the city, it affects everyone we attach to. His sense of urgency and immediate response prevented an already dire situation from becoming a truly catastrophic event. Mike tells us that there are several things he likes best about working for the city, and I'm not on this list. Including feeling appreciated, working with friendly employees around the city, the work environment, and the feeling he gets from knowing he's contributing in a meaningful way and having a positive impact on his fellow co-workers and city operations. Again, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commission, I give you this month's Employee Spotlight of October 2021, Mr. Mike DeFrank.
He's also very shy.
You forgot to stop by the mic and say not mentioning me was a mistake.
Our next item is to recognize the beautiful artwork here at City Hall, and our city manager is going to be speaking on that topic before we honor the artist, Mr. Mike Hart.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Actually, a lot of the credit to engaging Mr. Hart and having him here or having the artwork here at City Hall is credited to Ms. Vickett, my assistant outside. She wanted to do a remodel of the outside hallway area, and I was like, okay, have fun. And she ended up contacting Mr. Hart, and the artwork that he brought in to present and put on display at City Hall is just outstanding. We've received tons of compliments for it. And so in appreciation, we wanted to recognize him for his efforts in allowing us to borrow his artwork and display it here at City Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Now, many people have given up their turns, so we have like 10 turns to speak.
I just want to thank Michelle and David for allowing me the opportunity to display some of my work. The hardest part of doing the exhibit was deciding on which pictures to put up. I mean, there's so much beauty in our area that even if you go to my website, you'll see hundreds of pictures similar to these out here. And I just thank you for the opportunity to display some of the beauty as I see it through the camera.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next item is the ICMA recognition of Stuart's 95th year as Commissioner Manager form of government. All right, City Manager, you going to say anything before they are, okay, we'll just.
We're going to let them say
Okay,
something
you
after,
guys.
and then perhaps come down and get a certificate. Thank you for having us today. My name's Christine Thrower-Skinner. I'm the manager of the Village of Gulf in Palm Beach County, and I'm the District 4 Director for the Florida City and County Management Association. And I'm joined by, your name's escaping me. Michelle Berger, the town manager from Sewell's Point nearby. We're here today to recognize and congratulate the City of Stuart, Florida for its 95 years as what ICMA recognizes as a council manager form of government. You are, of course, a city commission. And the International City Managers Association acknowledges the significant accomplishment of this milestone. We celebrate the 95th year of the ICMA recognition you're older than that, but ICMA recognized you as a council manager form of government 95 years ago, and that's pretty special. We celebrate the city for working very closely with your manager, David Dice, and alongside of you, the elected officials representing the citizens of the great city of Stuart, and working hand in hand to offer the very best services and facilities to your entire community. And we would like to present you with a certificate of recognition from the International City Managers Association, presented on behalf of
Commissioners.
Florida City County Management Association.
Commissioners, let's go.
Yeah, one clapper.
David, you want one person, you want everybody? Okay.
Everybody that's been a city manager before. So Paul, David, Jolie, Michelle.
Is Mr. Meyer around?
It's so fun, it's like that.
Oh, wait, hold on. Jim, let's do it again. Mike is here. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I had to go put my red heels back on. Oh.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay.
Hey, we got time to burn. Follow me, right?
City manager?
Yes, ma'am. I just want to thank Christine for coming all the way up from down south to present this award and to be recognized as a manager council form of government for as long as we have been means that obviously it's working. And it continues to work with this form of government, I believe, is the best form of government that is available out there to us. Also to recognize, of course, we all know Mr. Paul Nicoletti, our previous city manager who carried the city for many years as well, and we appreciate him attending. And to my colleagues, our meetings, are not normally like this. It's normally more business-like, but once a month, we start at 4 o'clock, and for an hour and a half, we do a lot of the fun stuff that we don't normally get to do during our business meetings.
You call wearing high heels fun stuff?
You seem to enjoy it.
Thank you, city manager. Stormwater plan update, master plan update. Mr. Tim Volker, city attorney, city engineer. And Mr. Milton Leggett, city public works director.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. Tim Volker, for the record, Utilities and Engineering Director, and Milton Leggett, the Public Works Director. We're actually here to first introduce Joe Capra from CapTech, and Terry Andre is also in the crowd. She worked very diligently on our master plan for the past year, and we're here to present it. First, to kind of bring you a little bit back up to speed, back in end of May, early June of 2020, this area received a historic rainfall. I would say it's 20+ inches for the area, which is significant for 1 month, even by Florida standards. So right after that rainfall in May and June of 2020, I presented a floodplain and stormwater management presentation at the July 13th, 2020 meeting, just to kind of discuss the updated FEMA maps, kind of get into a little bit of the recent rainfall we had the prior month, and then also discuss kind of how engineers and planners go about laying out roads, buildings, and so forth. After that presentation, it was kind of brought up that it's time to dust off the master plan for the city. So previously, the city had two stormwater master plans. One was back in 1993 and then again in 2006. So about 14 years is a pretty long time. It was time to, like I said, dust it off. Really what we wanted to accomplish with this master plan, and Joe's going to get into a lot more detail, is to kind of look at the projects that were originally presented back in 93 and 06 to see what wasn't done, and then also some of these areas that recently flooded due to the historic rain in May and June of 2020. And then again, in August of this year, 2021, on August 13th, we received 9 inches of rain in less than 3 hours, which is very significant. So really, this plan's a roadmap for future improvements. We're going to kind of go into detail, and also as part of this plan that the previous plans didn't get into was sustainability and resiliency. You know, those two terms were really not prevalent back in 93 and 06, and the last couple years the focus has really been on sustainability and resiliency, so we added a section into the stormwater management plan to talk about those two topics. And with that, I'll let Joe kind of take over the presentation.
Good evening, Commissioners. As Tim stated, I'm Joe Capra, and I have Terry Andre here tonight to help me a little bit on the project. This, again, is an update of your Stormwater Master Plan, and I could talk a lot about all the different items in the plan, but I thought I'd quickly go through this. Actually, Tim told me I only had 15 minutes, and he told me I had it between 4:15 and 4:30, so I'm sure you want me to speak very quickly. So I have 14 slides. I'll go through them really quickly with you.
Take your
I always
time.
like to remind people the first thing on a stormwater program and management system, there are 3 components, and I bring them up because we get people that like to shortcut on designs of stormwater management. But the first item is conveyance, pipes, curbs, gutter, swales. Basically, you know, that pretty much brings everything, you know, from where the rain falls, it brings it into the system, and ultimately it brings it to a storage area, which is like a treatment pond, like this shows here. And storage is detention, retention, and as all of you know, we like to have a lot of treatment now because we're really trying to clean up our river from the local discharges. And the last thing is discharge, basically the discharge into the river. And everybody should know, obviously, we want to limit that. And now what you're going to find with resiliency and sustainability is we need to control the sea level rise. And so those are some really important things I think is important to mention because people just forget about those components. The next item, I'm not going to go through this, but essentially these are the chapters in the report. I could go through the whole report with you. We don't have enough time. You'd be falling asleep after the second slide. But basically, we identify the physical stormwater infrastructure. We recommend some improvements. We looked at your regulations, and then we provided a stormwater budget and discussed some funding options. Essentially, that's what the report totally talks about. I know it goes into history and so forth. We are changing the cover of the report, so what you have has been a draft, and we will be changing that for you. Again, Chapter 1 is really just an introduction. Probably the most important thing on this slide is really to talk about the benefits of stormwater management is to remove pollutants, alleviate flooding. But a lot of people forget that we really need to educate the public because they're the people that are putting these pollutants out there, and they need to tell us which floods and so forth because they're the eyes on the ground on everything. And so, I guess they call it the boots on the ground. Sorry about that. Anyway, strategic goals. I think the item to probably note here is vulnerability. Basically, the possibility of flooding due to climate change and sea level rise. Listen, let's be honest about this. Stuart has a high vulnerability for flooding and the impacts from sea level rise and climate change, and we've already experienced that. Sustainability, that's the ability to maintain improved standards without damaging or depleting our natural resources. And last but not least, resiliency its ability to recover from a storm event rapidly without disrupting your economy and the environment. And I think you all should know that you have a grant that is a vulnerability assessment report that we'll be working on in the next year. So that's something that will be inserted into your stormwater management plan. So I just want you to know this is a work in progress document. It'll be changing, it's dynamic, and so forth. So really, I think the historical review, I don't want to, I think Tim already told you about the two studies. 93, that was one which started your stormwater utility fee. Basically, that was updated in 2006. Probably some things that were added in 2006 had to deal mainly with baffle boxes and cleaning up and water quality. Both issues really kind of delve into adding water quality requirements. You know, there used to be where we tried to drain the land as fast as we could. A lot of that was stormwater, you know, flood control items, but then basically we added water quality treatment in the 90s, and obviously we've been doing that ever since, and we're now at a higher level. One of the items that was required and the state put out there was a basin management action plan, and basically on the right side you can see this map is really the St. Lucie estuary basin BMAP area, and as you know, the city of Stuart's right here in the middle of all of it, and essentially we have requirements. And to the city's credit, it's a 15-year program. The first 5 years you exceeded your requirements. The second 5-year increments you're online to do the same. And quite honestly, I'm pretty sure if you follow some of the recommendations here and continue on with the programs that you are on, you will meet your requirements for the BMAP. The next item is actually, you know, pretty much BMPs. I just make sure everybody understands, you know, there's structural facilities that you put out there on the ground. Basically, they control stormwater runoff. They basically help in the discharge, conveyance, and everything. And then there's non-structural items, public education. And again, as I stated earlier, we can't do enough of that to basically understand where the problems are and talk about how we can improve our water quality treatment and so forth. And of course, another big item there is maintenance, and that's one of the recommendations in the study is to provide, not that you're not doing a good job on maintenance with the staff that you have, but we definitely will need to be stepping up our maintenance game. And again, I think what the city's done, and really new tools in the tool chest with, you know, pervious surfaces, septic to sewer, a big benefit is septic to sewer in the BMAP program. Removal of nutrient-laden sediments, flock logs, sea level coastal valves, you know, STAs, bioswales, all these things the city's been doing. A lot of other communities are catching up. Project identifications. I think, you know, we start every project pretty much understanding, you know, where are we draining and what are we draining and so forth. And what's important about this map, it pretty much outlines for you, you know, pretty much north of the Roosevelt Bridge and south of the Roosevelt Bridge. And not all these areas are in the city. It's important to recognize that, you know, you have your basins, but your basins are impacted by other municipality drainage onto you. And so obviously to manage your system better, you need to make sure that you understand how those systems work. The next item that happened after we kind of identified the basins, we pretty much talked about capital improvements. Most of the capital improvements in this plan are from resident complaints. City of Stuart, you know, receiving complaints, basically experience out there. The second group of people that we talked with were the public stakeholders, the DOT. They operate facilities in town. Martin County Public Works has drainage facilities in town. We want to make sure they're maintaining their facilities. South Florida Water Management District, Martin County School District. So we met with them, and again, our purpose of that was to make sure we accommodated all the areas of maintenance for all the systems in the city that are impacted by the city or into the city. But one item that I kind of always like to talk about is there are other private systems out there, POA systems and so forth. All of those are also really important that we keep track of and make sure we understand how they're maintained and operated, because they will affect how well your systems work. So I just want to make sure I think the takeaway from this slide is we need to, it's good to know the complaints, know the stakeholders that impact our system, but also there's commercial areas, there's public, there's property owners associations, there's private citizens, and again, other municipalities. The next item on this is your project recommendations. What we prepared for you is a list of projects. I think there are about 27 of them that we came up with of projects that basically needed to have improvements. They were in areas where there was structural flooding. We needed to make sure their cost effectiveness, they're relative to the city goals for stormwater quality and relief and flood control. And of course, we wanted to make sure they benefit the city residents. We then ranked them from high, medium, and low priorities, and we prepared a preliminary design and cost estimate of each project. This is an example of just basically, I think this is a North River Shore area where we provided stormwater improvement plan and then a cost estimate for them, so you kind of know what today's costs are on these improvements. I think the next item, kind of a little out of sequence, is we also looked at the regulatory reviews that you have. The next 3 slides pretty much talk about that. You know, pretty much, as I stated earlier, there's systems that are private, city, county. You know, we want to utilize the most up-to-date criteria, which I'll go over with you in a minute, to compare your criteria with other municipalities. And then last but not least, add a maintenance element. And then those are just new developments. On retrofits, there's a little different standard, but they're all trying to accommodate storage, conveyance, and discharge, water quality, flood control. But probably one of the more important things that actually Cap Freeman was instrumental in getting started was to make sure that you considered the downstream impacts from development, new infill development onto the adjacent, either adjacent properties or downstream properties, which is a good improvement to the system. And last but not least, I always like to mention is that there's a level of service on all these stormwater systems. And, you know, we want to obviously do the best we can, but as most of you know, it's kind of a balancing act. You know, we don't design everything to the 100-year storm event. We obviously store water in streets. We store water in roadways, of course, but also in retention areas, stormwater treatment areas. But more importantly, you know, like the storm event that we had back on the 13th of I guess it was August or September, I think it was September, pretty much that was 9 inches in 3 hours. That was equivalent of a 500-year storm event. But a lot of people complained about the stormwater impacts. And I'm not saying that we don't have to do some design aspects to make that easy for people to live with, but essentially that's a flash flood. And those are little challenges that we have to work with. But I think what we found out is how fast did those come down to the normal, how fast did they clear out the stormwater and so forth. And of course, we always want to provide treatment before we discharge, but that's why I'm pointed out to you that we need the 3 elements: conveyance, retention, as well as discharge. As much as people don't like to see discharge into the river, you need all of those to make the system work properly. Next item is really some regulatory reviews. I'm just going to hit the highlights of the highlighted items there. For example, water quality and flood control protection. Your systems typically, and most systems in the area, are 1 inch of runoff is what we provide for water quality, or 2.5% times impervious. Martin County requires 3 inches, so that's a little higher standard, okay? You might want to consider that. The other thing that's happening now that most of you probably know is because of the basins that we're in, the South Florida water management requirements currently on our area is to provide nutrient load reduction analysis. And that's a higher level than actually the 3 inches or the 1 inch, okay? And so we're required by permit, but what happens is a lot of the developments in the city don't have to get a water management permit, so they don't always get into this criteria. So a nutrient load reduction calculation may be something we'd want to consider to up our game on stormwater quality. The next thing, discharge. You know, basically, the discharge cannot exceed the 3-year 1-day. Basically, there's about 4 storm events there. That's consistent to what we have relative to discharge. Roadway grades, pretty much you want to place your roadways above certain flood elevations. Yours is the 3-year 1-hour storm elevation. That's not significant. Martin County's 10-year. If it's a major collector, it's 25-year 3-day. South Florida Water Management's 5-year, 24 hours, and again, the St. Lucie County is 10 years. So there's some play on what we can improve upon in that area, if you'd like to do that. Parking lots, the 5-year, 1-hour storm event, again, that's consistent with the surrounding municipalities. And last but not least is finished floor elevations, pretty much put them 2 feet above the FEMA flood elevation or 18 inches above the crown of the street. That's consistent with current criteria. Pretty much on this slide, I'm not going to go through every one of these things. We talked earlier about the infill development ordinance that you just passed. I won't talk further on that. Basically, resiliency and sea level rise. You know, there's a resiliency study I told you that we're going to be doing in the next year for you. The item that we found important is maybe some tidal check valves on some of the outfalls, possibly a backup pump system, because as you know, some areas do fill up with water. We can't get the water out quick enough. There may not be power, so you may want generators. They can back that up. Shoreline stabilization is always important to make sure we don't have erosion into the river. Raised building pads, you know, essentially if you look at sea level rise, if you look at the average that they predict, and there's various levels of sea level rise depending on the study, but the NOAA study pretty much wants to use the intermediate. They show in 2040 about 2.65 feet of rise in sea level in our area. In 2070, it's almost 3 feet. Now, I know everybody's saying, well, we can't guarantee, you know, we're not sure what it's going to be because there's various studies on this, but essentially we need to be preparing for it. And so that's what we've been doing in other municipalities. Again, we're seeing increased storm events and we're seeing frequency. Again, one of the things we want to make sure people have access to is the National Flood Insurance Program. And one way, and again, is one thing to keep your eye on is the community rating system. When you educate your people about flooding and so forth, and you impress upon them how they need to raise elevations on their property, on their homes, or whatever they're doing, provide more retention, basically they get, you can get a discount on flood insurance. And again, the idea is to get have them in an insurance program that they can afford. The other regulatory considerations, again, I've already explained most of these items. I think the big item in there is let's make sure we, once we come up with the calculations, we want to provide a calculation that's simple for not only the engineer in town, but also the residents. They can understand why they're providing more retention on their property. So make that simple for them. And you've all pointed that out when Kev Freeman brought that ordinance out. And second, and the other thing is to make sure we operate and maintain not only the city systems, but we make sure that the private systems are maintained properly. Let's see. Okay, funding. You all have a stormwater utility fee, which pretty much is the fee current fee is $7 per month. $7.99 is an average throughout the state of Florida. These are statistics from the Florida Stormwater Association. Essentially, I like to tell people, you know, this is something you should monitor because cost of stormwater management has gone up, and obviously you want to make sure you have enough money coming in to help relieve this. So I'm not going to say that you need to always raise this fee, but it is one of the important fees that can get you not only money for maintenance and operation, also capital projects. I think you're putting about $250,000 a year into that right now for just capital improvements. But basically, you get a lot of effort, you get money for operations. But the other thing that's important about that utility fee is when a grant agency sees that you have that fee, they obviously give you some points usually on the selection for a grant. So it is important that you do that. You're very efficient on maintaining your system. You have 9 miles of storm pipe, 38 baffle box, 620 catch basins, and you do that with 3 full-time employees. And that doesn't include all the swales and everything else that they're maintaining. So they're doing a pretty good job. And obviously, when they need help, I know Milton asked you to do some sub-consulting people, or contractors to help you. But the fact of the matter is you're down to quite a few, as few number of positions as I think you probably should have. and you have equipment also that you have to support. Again, as the systems get older, you're going to be maintaining them, and so you're going to need to keep track of that. I always recommend to everybody to aggressively pursue grants to leverage your funds that you put in there from the stormwater utility. I know you've been successful in that area, as well as most municipalities on the Treasure Coast. But you got to keep your eye on that, and you got to pursue them all. And I know there's other options for funding, you know, MSTUs and clean water, state revolving, and so forth, legislative funding that you all have been pursuing. This is the list that we came up with, a list of about 28 projects. This one pretty much is the high priority list here. I think it's about $5.2 million worth of work. Pretty much it outlines some drainage, water quality improvements. Became high priority if it basically mitigated some structural flooding, if there was a long-term problem, if we had more complaints, and also if there was an availability of funding out there. If there's grant fundings, we want to go capture it now. So that's how this list, these became high priorities. The medium priority projects are about $2.4 million, and I would use high priority as in the next 5 years. I think Milton told me you have about $2 million set up in the next couple of years, set up of funds that are available, but that's, I'm sure that will change from time to time. And the next one, medium, we're thinking that's from about 5 to 10 years, and low priority projects after about 10 years. Again, it's $12.7 million that you'll be spending on these capital improvement projects. Again, one of the things when you get done with our study is to determine probably a rate study to determine what you should be putting aside for stormwater. And these are the medium projects and then the low priority projects here. As I stated, we're kind of a work in progress. I think there's a slide that talks about some projects or areas that flooded during the event that we had on 8/13/21. Some of these, I would say about 2/3 to half of these are already in the program, but basically there's a couple that we probably will be adding in the program. Some of them are already there. But essentially, you know, we want to look at some of these a little bit closer since that rain event. And again, that was a flash flood. So I'm not saying that every requirement that we put on any new development would have the criteria, meet the criteria for that storm event, but we can look at ways to lower the flood levels on that project too, or to at least make sure it drops quickly after the storm event. With that, I'll entertain any questions.
Mr. Volker and Mr. Capra, thank you for your presentation. Miss, either one of you, the new system that has been put in behind the YMCA and along Monterey Road and coming to Palm Beach Road and dealing with, I guess, Little Willoughby Creek and all that, how effective that has been? I know that we had a September, August flooding or so that you mentioned, and there was also a flooding on US 1, I think, in front of Carrabba's where we had a big incident. But how effective implementing this plan or trying to get something going, some of the ideas?
Well, first of all, I think most of you know that clean out of that system was done by Martin County.
Yes, yes.
And it, you know, it's like I stated, maintenance it should, if anything, it should become more of a priority now. That system was there for a long time. There was little maintenance of it, and what we find, obviously, you know, as I tell people, I can design a system, but guess what? When a garbage can lid comes down and blocks a pipe, because nobody's maintaining stuff, it happens, and then we basically have flood elevations. I think it has helped the system. I don't doubt that the criticism I've heard that probably there could be some some replanting of some areas. So you can do things with that system. Again, maybe you might want to try some nutrient load reduction items in there. There are things that can be done to enhance that system. It's all a matter of having the money for it. And I'll be honest with you, we're doing stormwater master plans for just about every municipality in the area. Everyone has the same problem you do: not enough money, needing maintenance. They all want to do the right thing, but sometimes, those things take time to clean out, come up with a program that maybe would be a little more attractive for the neighborhood. But other than that, I think the system worked better. But I think Milton and Tim probably could talk about if they saw any adjustments that are needed to that system. I don't remember any we talked about.
No, most of the residents, they were requesting additional trees. They want a blockage up there, but the system worked pretty well. My take on it.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Capra. Anybody else has any questions of Mr. Capra or Mr. Volker?
I have one minute.
Mr. McDonald?
Joe, I was looking through the priority list and looking through the high priority items, and I think there was, $5.2 million, or no, $12 million worth, I think, of total, but I think let me go back to that list.
It's $5 million on the high priority.
Yeah, that's what I thought, $5 million on the high priority. So if we were prioritizing the high priority projects, would we be better if we had, say, $2.5 million? Would it be better to do the two big projects or a bunch of smaller ones, as far as prioritizing? Because sometimes cost doesn't necessarily mean what's going to give us the most bang for the buck, and I was kind of see if what you had thought on that.
Well, as you know, I do quite a bit of work with Michelle.
Joe, we can't hear you, Mr. Capra.
I do quite a bit of work with Michelle on strategizing on stormwater grant funding, okay? And, what I kind of look at, first of all, it's not only the benefit, that's the first item, but how am I going to get the money, okay? And if you look at your top priorities there's drainage, okay, which is flood control, and baffle boxes, okay, so that has water quality. So you kind of need, to get most of the grant money, you need something that has a combination of both. I pretty much always provide water quality to any one of these improvements, and we have done that in all these. We've also provided, in most of these, you're going to find resiliency items, stuff that controls sea level rise, okay? So all of those are come in play. To give you an example, and I may not be answering your question directly, but what we find is a lot of the state funding is for water quality treatment, okay? And so that's one source of funding that you go after, okay? The second thing is you are part of the LMS program, Local Mitigation Strategy, which is flood control, really. That's with FEMA money, okay?
Mhm.
And so the hardest thing that you have to do is you get on that LMS list, and then you have to basically get ranked high amongst all the rest of the municipalities in Martin County, and then you have to, obviously, once you get your project up there, then you want to apply for that grant, and you want to apply for a federal grant, which is the FEMA money, and then the state grant, which is usually water quality, and you basically apply for both of those grants so that
Right.
you can match one with the other. So
I understand. Mine was more of, would be better doing a bunch of small projects or a couple large projects. I understand that, it kind of goes in with the funding, but if I just had a pot of money, that as we're putting money aside, because we're going to have to put money aside for this, because grants aren't going to cover everything.
yeah, and to be honest with you, I mean, I pretty much, we've put them on the high priority, and you may want to consider maybe doing a portion of the bigger ones so you can get down the list a little bit. So,
Okay.
I mean, I do think that it's important that we get more than just one project built per year.
Right, that's what I'm kind of getting at. Sometimes we might, if we can get 4 or 5 done for the price of 2, are we better? But maybe one of those big ones is so important that it's more important than the other 5 small ones, just because of whatever the circumstances are.
So it's a matter of like I said, we did a flood control and stormwater quality stuff. We kind of broke it down. So some of your grant funding are different too. So you might want to look at the type of funding you go after for each one of them.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
Vice Mayor?
Well, Commissioner McDonald, I I think I share your fears when I look at this, and we look at just the high priority projects of $5.2 million. And we're allocating 250 or so, as Mr. Capper said, per year. But my interpretation, and I'll try and phrase this in a question, would maybe be to try and be grant ready as much as possible with all the project of high priorities. Because if we just look at the one that's on our consent calendar of Tesler Drive water quality improvements, at this meeting, we're applying for our second grant from it. So there is a realistic possibility that we might go above and beyond what we might sit up here and look for as the baseline of, say, a 50-50 match. Which, if we just looked at a 50-50 match to get to $5 million, we're looking at 10 years or so with allocating 250. But if we're grant ready and design ready for almost every single project and applying for grants aggressively as they come up, we might hopefully beat that 10-year timeline or receive more than that 50-50 match in grants because we can apply for multiple grants for the same project. Is that correct, Joe?
Yeah, that's correct. You can, like I said, I think each one of these, looking at the list, you should be putting on these should be on your LMS list as your top priority. Because you can get more money, first of all, through FEMA, and these are drainage related. So you'll get a bigger share, you'll get a larger sum of money for. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't have to come up with a match, but once you get, if you can kind of come up with a large money from FEMA, and it's 75-25% money, and whereas state money is 50-50. Okay, so I think you should put these on the LMS, and again try to get that money as one source, and then the state money. There's a large sum of state money available now, so you want to kind of get out there for that state money. It's hard for me to tell you to get one of the things the strategy is to get your design done, your permitting. One of the things that we try to do is, design up to about 60% plan, and then basically get your permits filed, and then when you file that application on the grant, you can say you have a permit. You still have more design work to do, but it's not as substantial, and basically at least get you into the grant program is what I think you want to try to do.
My other highlight, well, one of them was I'd like to focus on the differences, as you mentioned, between Martin County requiring 3 inches of runoff treatment versus our 2.5, and then could you expand on what you meant by, projects that might come before us that don't require a district permit, and since we don't internally have any water quality standards, they're kind of passing under the radar. Is that what you meant, or?
Well, what happens is there's not a requirement to do a nutrient load analysis for the city. If you put that requirement in there, then you would see more volume of stormwater treatment, storage on each of the projects, okay, for water quality, okay, and so that you'd gain a little more storage, which means that on the properties, which is less discharge that goes onto your city systems, and so that's why I recommend you consider that's one option. Again, it's a matter of how much, one of the things we did, we kind of looked at is what does 2 more inches, because it's really 2 more inches of volume that you put on properties, is it really that significant? And you're going to find out people may have swales, berms, they can do underground storage. There's a lot of, as long as you give them a lot of tools in the toolbox to accomplish that storage, it's not that expensive. And I think actually you asked some pretty good questions I saw when you were working with Kev Freeman on that. As long as you kind of help the people understand how easy it is to provide this storage, then I think you're going to find them more willing to provide that storage on the property. So that's why I'd say I mean, we could at least we could have the position of requiring the nutrient load analysis done, as well as considering some more water quality treatment from 1 to 2 inches. Now, let's be realistic about this. You don't have a lot of vacant land right now, but you will have retrofits that you will need, and that's when you're going to see some benefit from this.
And all these improvements would be less load on our system.
That's right.
Than currently what we're asking.
Commissioner Meyer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I'm following right with you, Vice Mayor. I think, and I guess my question directly for you is, in your experience, as we are rightly looking more at private on-parcel stormwater management and water quality management systems, it follows that would limit the onus on the city's side for our conveyance and our treatment and our discharge if we're not harsher, but if we have stricter requirements for stormwater capacity and treatment on individual parcels. So are you seeing that if we're updating our codes to be a little bit more aggressive on stormwater management on the individual private parcel side, that could ultimately result in lower costs in the future for the city?
Well, I think that there's several ways of looking at this. I think that we want less stormwater impact to your system.
Right.
Okay. We hope to obviously want to have less. With that, we would have less maintenance. Obviously, a lot of times these items do break, so you obviously want less water coming onto you means less money spent in that category. I think the other thing is once we get these private systems adding more to the system, we need to insist that they maintain their systems. And that's what I kind of recommended in the report, that we provide a little more emphasis on maintenance. And it's as simple as just coming up with a plan that they turn in to get their approval. And quite frankly, Martin County does this puts a little more emphasis on this. They basically want the plan, but what we found is they get the plan, but nobody monitors whether it's done. And there was things like this happening. For example, we did the Port St. Lucie study. They weren't monitoring it. I think you're kind of setting up a bureaucracy here to some extent. I hate to say that, but the fact of the matter is somebody needs to make sure that's happening. And so you have to figure out how efficient you can be at that. Again, I don't see that as a big burden, but it is something to think about.
So I guess what I'd like to really push on is kind of the takeaway from this. The CIP is one thing that we have to address, obviously, but the longer we wait to address the code, the requirement implications, we're always going to be chasing the problem. So, I mean, what's the process like coming out of this? Is it going through development to bring forward proposed, or is it a utilities question?
You set the policy, so you guys give me the direction.
Well, okay. I still haven't, unfortunately, seen the full copy of this proposed update plan, so, well, let's get it. And then I think we need to get it on the calendar quickly to have, our Public Works, Utilities, and a Development Department to start, there he is, start bringing these forward to us, because the longer we wait, those costs are just going to only continue to stack up.
I agree. I certainly agree. That's what I was getting at, Commissioner Meyer, and I think Commissioner McDonald kind of touched on it in the cost analysis. I mean, we are behind it. If we're looking at the overall picture and 2040, and with our own funding, we're not going to be paying, we're barely, if we really stretch it, going to touch all the things on our priorities list now, not to mention what gets added to the list. I think the least we can do is examine and compare our requirements to Martin County as a whole and to the district's requirements, and see, if we can, mirror some of those at a smaller scale in the city to ease the burden that we have to do.
And so for staff, then I guess, looking at the idea of, we've had multiple projects come in over the last several months, couple of years, that have that have, without code requirement, brought forward innovative stormwater management technology as part of a PUD perhaps. We have talked about maintenance, but we haven't required it as a condition. So I think to Joe's point, you know, just in a meeting with a potential, you know, site plan earlier this week, we talked about that. They proposed stormwater management, and I said, well, what we need to really start doing is getting it so that it's, you know, your CO can be revoked if you don't have every 6 months or 1 year, staff must be supplied with a independent stormwater, you know, maintenance report. And we pull the CO if it's not in compliance. So whatever it takes to have that brought forward soon would be great.
Thank you. Any other comments from, go on, Vice Mayor.
Can you go up a few slides? I plan to kind of mention this in my commissioner comments, which are coming up right after this, to this one, Joe. So I know there's an extremely simple diagram, but one of the most important parts for me is the water quality aspect of it between the treatment pond and discharge area, and that's the wetlands, or, you know, what I've been pushing, or littoral plantings or native plantings, any of those plants that are going to do upkeep. And this is something I'd like us as a city to try and push forward to set the example in some of our retention areas that we have. And I can discuss it more, my thoughts and what I've seen over the past few weeks in commissioner comments and meetings with some of our staff on that.
Well, I see that as living shorelines as well, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's whether it's living shorelines, buffered shorelines, or, you know, the water quality aspect between a retention pond before a discharge area.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Just so you know, most projects now, to get the nutrient load reduction, you have to provide some kind
Joe,
of
can you
littoral
speak into
shelf.
the mic? I can't hear you.
Most stormwater retrofit projects, or more stormwater improvement projects right now, to get your nutrient load reduction, we pretty much insist that you need some kind of, that's kind of a littoral shelf, a bioswale, something of that order. You know, you have to come up with some of these, because it's difficult to meet that nutrient load reduction criteria. So what you're asking for is probably one of the only options that people have to get that that meet that reduction and that get that permit. So.
Thank you.
Mr. Volker, do you have a copy of the draft master plan?
Yeah, and is it gonna
Yes.
be?
Okay. Can you email a copy to them?
Yes, we can email
We
that out.
can link it.
Thank you.
Do you need a
Can see it.
motion for any further direction, or did you get sufficient?
No, I believe I have sufficient direction as far as what you're talking about with the increase in the on-site, and yeah.
And I like this, it's not really a penalty, but a monitoring implementation that Commissioner Myers brought up, because we see people who have projects that have been around for some time, and now they're, you know, dealing with parking and stormwater and other issues, and we really need to find some way to monitor this in a way that will be helpful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Was that something, Mr. McDonald?
I just said thank you.
Oh, okay, all right, thank you. Our next item, we're past the 5:30 hour, but we're in good standing. Comments by commissioners. Commissioner Bruner?
Last week, I was invited to the Kiwanis Club. They
We
had
can't hear you, Commissioner Bruner.
last week, the Kiwanis Club invited me and from an email, so maybe the other ones were invited also. And I went, and they had a nice little reception, and it was out at the Elliott Museum. And I hadn't been there in a long time, and the Elliott Museum just is wonderful. And they had a good crowd, and why they were inviting us, the people, is every year, the Kiwanis Club has always made the Christmas ornament. And you can buy them at the Historic Museum at the feed store. They're $25. And there might be a couple other places you can buy them. But anyway, I learned a lot more what the Kiwanis Club does and for the children. And I decided to join. And when it comes to the children, it's one of my favorite things. The Women's Club, I'm a member of the Women's Club, and we do a lot for the young ladies in high school to get them a start to get to college with no money. So anyway, I really appreciate what Kiwanis does for our community.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner McDonald?
Yeah, so a couple quick things. One is, I'd like to pull item 17 from the consent calendar.
Okay.
Let's see. Also, at the last meeting, there was 3 gentlemen here that lived on Lonita Street. I went over and met with one of them, and they had a couple concerns. One is stormwater, which I think we've addressed that. Also, speeding on the road. I was there for quite a while with the gentleman. I didn't see anybody speed down the road, but I saw 5 cars run the stop sign while standing there. And so I wonder if maybe, and I talked to Manager Dias about that, and he was going to look into that as well. And then finally, he did mention, I got to put my glasses back on, the condition of the road. I'm not sure when Lonita is scheduled to be on our paving program, but it's actually in pretty bad shape down there near Casa. So I also want to thank Milton because got a complaint from a neighbor of mine about some trees that were coming down and cars were hitting as they were going down the road, and mentioned to Milton, and miraculously the trees got taller. So thank you, Milton. He's amazing. And then finally, we're going to have an item later on tonight regarding Meritage and some trees, and I want to. I haven't had a chance to sit down and talk to staff about this, but I want to look at our code regarding pre-construction meetings so that we can make sure that we don't have this situation come up. And if we need to look at our code for requiring pre-construction meetings to make sure that preserve areas are protected, buffers are protected, that are supposed to be, I think that we should look at that. And so if it's okay at the commission, I'd like our staff to look at that and if necessary, bring something back. So if we need a motion, I can make a motion for that.
Well, just out of clarification, in this particular case, it was a PUD that was approved, so pre-construction meeting would have been a year and a half before the PUD?
No, pre-construction, right before they started construction.
A pre-permit meeting of some sort?
Yeah, that's what I mean, right before after they
Permit for clearing.
right before they start construction.
I think we do that now. I mean, I've come in back here a lot of times and see the whole group with the construction companies and stuff.
On site?
Here.
Yeah, I think we need to do an on-site meeting to make sure that silt fences are up, make sure that.
That's an inspection, not a, I mean, the meeting is to talk about the stuff. You're not going to want to do that on site. You're going to want to do that here at our facility. You're talking about an inspection of what's supposed to occur.
Martin County calls it a pre-inspection, pre-construction.
So the building inspector is going to fill us in.
Hi, Stephen Nicolosi, building official for the record. We do actually do it twice. We have a pre-construction meeting in here,
Okay.
and I bring that up all the time. Make sure you follow the PUD agreement. And then Mark Regolino's team has a meeting on site.
Okay.
And that usually includes South Florida Water Management and FDOT if necessary.
Okay.
So the problem is you just got someone that went a little rogue and started knocking trees down. And
Yeah.
So perhaps it's stiffer penalties.
Maybe it's looking at, I just want to have staff look at that, make sure that maybe we can prevent this in the future, so.
Yeah, I mean, we try. It's just, you can't.
No, I understand. No, I understand. It's tough. We're trying to, there's some things that it's hard to regulate, so.
You know, and they're going to be paying the price. I mean, it's not, they're not getting off scot-free here, so I think they'll bring that up later, but. And I have a hold on any vertical construction down there, so that's definitely hurting them
Okay.
until they get things rectified with you all.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholas. And Mr. McDonald, do you have anything else?
Nope, that'll do it.
Thank you. Mr. Meyer?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to pick up off of, well, October is a month for many different things, and today was a day of many different holidays and remembrances. And so, you know, for many people, it's Indigenous Peoples Day, and for many people, it's Columbus Day. And I wanted to pick up one of the things that the CEO of Safe Space said about a historically taboo subject and the violence of silence. Today is also National Coming Out Day, and it's unfortunate that this has to be something that we have to do, but you know, there are still far too many people in our community and our society who are targeted, denied employment, denied career progression, denied, you know, love by friends and family simply for their identity, whether their sexual identity or their gender identity. So I wanted to acknowledge that today. It's unfortunate that we have to, but as a queer person, I want to make sure that for my colleagues on the board, people of staff, people in our community, we're here, we support you. It's unfortunate that there are those in our community who would deny you fair treatment because of who you are, but there's love and support out there for you, so be strong.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to the other commissioners. Thank you for pulling item 17. And for celebrating in your comments, Commissioner Meyer, and all of the special days that are occurring today. Late last week, I attended a workshop at 10th Street Community Center about the MLK improvements. I imagine Mayor Clark will talk about it a little more. I wanted to thank Milton for his quick reaction to some of the comments made during that workshop, and thank Punal Gandhi Sabdas and the representative from Mr. Kim, from Kimley Horn in their presentation on our desires to improve MLK streetscape. We are listening to that community, and it's not an easy task to bring about change. Let's see, I also, mid last week, took one of the governing board members of the South Florida Water Management District, Charlotte Roman, out on a boat tour. I wanted to thank Officer Joe Hogan for captaining the boat. And I want to thank Mike Connor, our local Indian River keeper, for helping set up and inviting District Board Member Roman for coming along. She brought two of her staff. Mr. Ben Hogarth went with us, and John Mayle, Director of Ecosystems Restoration and Management from the county, and myself were on the boat, and we spent the whole day with her. We went from city docks and looked at and discussed some of the development that got set back in 2018 and reset or you know, pulled out when we had toxic algae then. We discussed, you know, my life and others of growing up here and seeing the impacts of discharges. We went to the S80 locks and then up the natural South Fork a little bit to show where the headwaters of the South Fork water and the beneficial water we get compared to the harmful water. And then we went out to Sailfish Flats area and the crossroads and looked at the sandbars, which, you know, don't have any seagrass on them. It was a beautiful day. There was tons of bait fish, but she got the idea. We dredged up some muck samples in the South Fork and, you know, discussed what's happening on our sandbars. So she had never been over here. She's from Lee County, Hendry County, Okeechobee County representative, and lives on Marco Island. We also stopped by Shepherd's Park and discussed all the things that city is doing locally. And I can't thank our staff enough and the other commissioners. You know, we toured that project, and she was very receptive to know that we're doing as much as we possibly can on our end. So hopefully that'll have an impact. Again, I've got a outstanding invite to the new Colonel of the Army Corps, Colonel Booth, to come at some point. And you know, a picture's worth 1,000 words, but spending a day on the water is worth 10 times that, to show someone what you're really talking about when you're advocating for it. Lake Okeechobee, just for everyone's reference, is at 15.83 feet. Last year, it was at 16.09, because this time last year we had Hurricane Ida moving past or so, and we were getting discharges. So we're right around that very dangerous time, and we're not out of the woods yet, as going into the dry season. I asked earlier when Mr. Capra had some slides up, I wanted to highlight our retention area, and the on his slide was between that was wetlands, between that and water discharging out to tide or to our waterways. And the reason I bring that up was because it's really important to have that natural vegetation or something to uptake a lot of the nutrients. And a week or two ago, I saw a video by a resident of some herbicide use, some aquatic herbicide use sprayed from a small skiff in Hospital Pond around the perimeter of the pond. And I know our staff is following exactly what our directive was, and you know, in 2018, the end of 2018, the city of Stuart banned the use of glyphosate, an herbicide, and we have on some other larger PUDs. And we do use it minimally, was our other directive, and minimally has different ways of being interpreted. Minimally could be, you know, once in 3 years, or minimally could be spot treating different plants. But I've met with David and Milton, and I'm pushing our staff to try and examine and bring back to us other ways to fully move away from the use of herbicides, especially in our water retention areas. I can understand it in some areas, but going around sterilizing a shore bank with all the other battles we're trying to do for water quality improvements just doesn't seem right. And so I directed our staff to kind of communicate with some other local scientists and look at ways of naturally managing that shoreline so that you're not going back combating weeds in an area where you cannot mow, to try and have natural native grasses that are aesthetically pleasing, that in the long term would be better management practices, and perhaps save the city money in the long term. So I just wanted to let my other commissioners know I'll do my best in communicating with you know, folks at FOS and ORCA, and I know there's a better way we can be doing something, and I know as the city we've taken some steps in the right direction, but I'd like to continually lead by example.
Thank you,
And
Commissioner.
that's all my comments, Mayor.
Thank you. I have several comments. First, I'd like to welcome back Mr. Kempenny for here, taking notes, doing his thing. And then, since we're talking about welcome, I wanted to pull item number 17 simply because I saw Mr. Woodside in our audience. He's like, oh, no. No, but I think that we have a lot of issues with our water treatment facility, and there's a short presentation that's in the agenda item, and I just wanted to make sure that Mr. Volker is still here. Yeah, so that just the public know about the $16 million and have staff ask some questions. And, you know, we saw the letter from the engineer and so on, and what we need to do. But I think it's so important to talk to people about what we're doing with our water supply system and how we're going about doing that. So I think most of us have pulled item number 17. So That's where that is. Continue with Mr. Volker's department, the other side of it, Public Works. As Commissioner or Vice Mayor said, we did have a workshop at MLK regarding MLK, and Ms. Gandis Savdas was in charge of that workshop along with the Kimley Horn Group. And we had very, very good attendance, very, very good participation. I just know that maybe it's because in COVID, I have not had a town hall since this year, since I've been mayor. And we've had, you use whatever opportunities we've had to communicate with people. But I saw that there was such a need, especially in the East Stewart area. People had so many questions about other problems that they have at City Hall. And they got an opportunity. I know that somebody asked about benches, and I've seen some wonderful pictures where Mr. Leggett has replaced and beefed up an area along the 10th Street area. So I hope that that will be a positive thing and that we'll hear something positive about that. But thank you, Mr. Leggett, and thank you, Ms. Gandis Savdas, for that. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. I've talked to city manager about possibly I'm going to reach out to Kimley Horn and see what we can do to maybe get some, almost like an ombudsmanship going with just trying to make sure we have the right people in the right place to work on this and to get the decision making and the information to the people in the community as we continue to work on that Martin Luther King Boulevard project before they come back to us as a city commission. So I just wanted to hopefully start some wheels turning in the direction to make sure we can get good input from folks. And I really appreciate all the people who came out and all the questions they had, even though some of the questions were not related to the streetscape. I think it was good, and it shows that people had their eyes and their ears open, and they're wanting to have some answers and ask why, so that's important. I have just recently become a member of the Audubon board. The Audubon is right there at the corner of Martin Luther King, 7th Street. On the other side of Palm Beach Road, it's 7th Street. And it's our only urban forest, and they've been reorganizing and doing all of that with volunteer work. If anybody has a chance to go there to the Audubon, please go. And it's the Possum Long Center, has had different names over the years. Please go and visit, spend time walking with your family, your dog, whatever. Please visit that area and provide suggestions to us at the Audubon as to how we can better provide information to you about wildlife, especially about birds in our area. It is so important to do that. I've also had people come to me about community policing, and especially in the East Stewart area, changes in community policing, and I haven't had a chance to talk to Chief. But again, I want to make sure if we need to meet with citizens, meet with Chief, make sure that we're having the right approach and we're continuing the right approach in all of our areas in the city of Stuart. So I'm going to be following up on that with Chief and with our city manager. I've been a part of a book club that has been reading a book stamped from the beginning by Ibram Kendi. And at one of our projects to show that we're trying to reach out to our community is to work with the youth and to make sure that kids are reading. If they're not reading, they're not going to be studying, and they're not going to be reading voluminous pages to study for exams and to do things independently on their own, as we've had that burden on them during COVID when some of them have not been in the classroom. So we're working with that. If anybody's interested in reading to a youth, you can always contact me, and let's see how we can work together to get some students to work with us. And it's just 5-10 minutes, even just to call them and ask them, have you read something today? Do you understand it? We really want to push reading and push it in a way for those who are not usually participating in groups and doing the kind of things that we know some students who are studious do. So we want to reach out to those who need to be exposed and to get a little nudge to do some more. That's it. No, I'm not going to call on Milton to show his picture, but thank you for it. Thank you so much. He showed me a picture of a bench where they had made a change on 10th Street, but we appreciate all the work that all of our staff does each and every time. City Manager?
Happy birthday, Mike Mortel.
Oh, that's right, Mike Mortel, happy birthday. Happy birthday, I forgot that.
Thought I was going to skirt it.
One of the jobs of the
Beat
city
ya.
attorney is to wait until the next year comes around for his birthday.
That's right.
We've had plenty of festivities for Mike today. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 17 actually has a presentation attached to it. It was my fault that it ended up on consent. It should have been commission action the entire time, so thank you for pulling that. And I just wanted to clarify, Vice Mayor Matheson stated that he directed staff. I want to make sure the rest of the commission understand he did not direct staff. He doesn't have the authority to do that. He discussed with me, and I directed staff. So thank you. And if there's any change to our procedure, I have told Vice Mayor Matheson that that will come back to commission for a vote, because this is a very double-edged sword. On the one side, you have what he is talking about, and the other side, you have weeds and vegetation that grows up around our shorelines and in our parks, and then you get a lot of residents who are upset about that. So whatever we do, we'll bring back to you for some type of action or approval. That's all, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
I must have come out, I had a meeting with our staff.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We have an agenda that has been published. What is the pleasure of the board?
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Move approval with the
Item 17 pulled.
I'll accept that.
Oh, yes,
Second.
sorry.
Seconded with item 17 pulled. Is that what you're saying?
That's my motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Comments from the public, 3 minutes maximum.
We have no comments, Mayor.
We have no comments
see
card,
some
but we
comments.
see somebody wants to wish Mr. Mortel a happy birthday. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, happy. I don't sing. Helen McBride. I'm sorry, I forgot to hand it in, Mary. 2 weeks ago, I went upstairs to the planning department and filed a complaint about Aldi's. They redid the driveway, but in doing so, they took away the handicap parking spots. Remember, I mentioned it to the commissioner. And I'm sorry, I haven't been back down that way, because I only go down for my half and half, and I still have it. But I wanted to bring it to your attention, because I think if I sat here, you approved the plans, and the handicap spots were there, and now they've taken away. So I want to be sure, since I haven't heard anything, I'm bringing it to your attention. Because I found out today that, I should know this, someone said, Helen, you should file a complaint with the American Disability Act. And I said, no, I don't do things like that. First, I come up here and complain. The second thing is, at the 10th Street meeting, I'm sure you heard someone saying about the portalettes.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, Sunday at the basketball court, which is a fantastic job you guys did on that court. That's the first I've been over there, in the area. They had a gospel thing. It was fantastic. The music, it was just, and they were up here from Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Okeechobee, Boca Raton, West Palm Beach. It was really great. But again, the American Disability Act came into play. A senior citizen with a walker cannot get into a portalette. It's just the woman that was sitting next to me had the walker, and she left. I thought she just went home. She came back. I said, oh, I thought you left. She said, no, I had to use I had to go to the restroom, and she said I had to go home to use her restroom to come back. Oh. These, they're but for the grace of God, go you or I. But maybe, well, I'm much older than you guys, but this may happen to me. But this city is known. But I'm just saying, you've got to be careful. Aldi's is definitely in my opinion, and I think I know enough about being sitting here, you can't, you approved the building permit and how it was to be done, and if they took away those handicap, that's wrong. They should be fined, in my opinion. But I know at the 10th Street, the one woman said about the portalets. But if you feel you need portalets, they're going to have to find handicap portalets also. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. City Manager, if you could look into that. I thought that when someone rented the place that the bathrooms would be open and available, but maybe, I'm not sure why that's not happening, but I will, we'll definitely look at that. Any other public comments? This is the time for public comments on items that are not on the agenda. You can comment on agenda items when those items come up. Any other open to the public comment?
Madam Mayor, we do have one comment on Zoom.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Paul.
It's Karen Hall.
Yes, sir. Ms. Hall?
Mute. Good evening, Karen Hall, 1701 Southwest Palm City Road. Thank you for your service. I want to comment about the public comment. You cut us back from 5 minutes to 3 minutes. And then I was told it was because Martin County did that. Well, I want to say Martin County puts the public comment first. And while we like you guys, I voted for 3 of you. We care what you have to say, but I don't think it's right for the commissioners to go on for 10, 12, 20 minutes before the public comments. We pay you, we pay for everything that goes on, so I think it's only fair that public comment goes before the commissioners, right? And I just want to say happy birthday to Mike Mortel. I got a present coming for you. Thank you.
I can't wait.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Thank you. Any other public comment? Thank you.
It shouldn't be that funny.
Oh, it's funny.
We have the consent agenda. The consent, yeah, the
Move for
consent
approval of the consent
calendar.
agenda.
Second.
There, motion for the consent agenda, pull-in, of course, we pull item number 17. Clerk, would, there's a second. Is there any comment on the consent agenda? Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Meyer,
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Matheson,
Yes.
Commissioner Bruner,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes. I know that we've pulled item number 17, and Ms. Hall just said commissioners go on and on. But in my comments, I forgot to mention about the Martin County the Art Society 31st Annual Juried Art Show. And it's at the Courthouse Cultural Center, October 12th through November 20th. Please go to the Arts Council's website and look that up and support the arts. Mr. Volker, item number 17, or
This would
City
be-
Manager?
This would be resolution number 107-2021, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Stuart, Florida, approving the award of ITB 2021-114 Water Treatment Plant RO Treatment Facility to the lowest responsible bidder, total unit price of $16,695,000 to PC Construction, doing business as PCEO Inc. of South Burlington, Vermont, providing an effective date and for other purposes.
Thank you, Mr. Volker, Mr. Woodside, and everybody involved with this.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. Tim Volker, Utilities and Engineering Director for the record. This presentation's really to bring you guys up to speed from the February 2021 presentation I presented. It'll also get into the path forward from today also. And with the alternative water supply project, it's a 3-phase project to be implemented over 15 years. So the first phase is made up of 4 components. Your very first component is the water supply well, which is FA1 and depicted kind of in the bottom right-hand corner on the aerial with the red dot. The second component of the first phase is the reverse osmosis facility. So that's what's depicted in blue on the aerial map. All that work is done within the water treatment plant fence. The third component is the concentrate pipeline, and that pipeline runs from the new water treatment plant all the way up to the water reclamation facility. And then the fourth and final component of phase one of the alternative water supply is modification to the deep injection well, which is already existing. And I'll get into more detail of each of these components for you. So the very first component is the water supply well, which we completed back in December 2020, and it's 1,620 feet below surface. So this is within the Floridan aquifer. It's the first well the city's constructed in this aquifer. And from the testing we've done, it indicates it's a very productive well. The engineer of record even described it as being a tiger of a well, so, which is very good to, promising, because everything's dependent on what water this well pulls. And now you may ask, why'd we drill this well over a year ago when the plant's not going to be ready for 2 years? Because in order to design the plant, we had to pull the water quality from 1,620 feet. So the membranes that are going to be constructed as part of the RO facility are like a kidney. They basically remove all the impurities out of the water. So in order to see what impurities lie 1,620 feet below, we had to get the well in the ground, pull the water, and test it, and then complete the design of the RO facility. So the reverse osmosis facility is all the work within the water treatment plant, and it's the most expensive component of phase one. And the low bidder is PC Construction. Since August is when bids were due, PC Construction was the low bidder, and that's the contract before you at this commission meeting to award tonight. A couple kind of keynote items to discuss or to mention on the RO facility is the actual building and all the work within the plant is actually being built out for all three phases. So instead of building a building and then having to add on to the building, we're just constructing it full size now, and then the components just get placed in their dedicated spot. So, instead of paying construction escalation 5 years from now, we're taking that hit up front, hence kind of the high construction dollar value right now. But in the long term, it saves the city money by having that stuff constructed earlier. Construction duration is going to be 2 years for this, for all the work within the plant. The third component's the pipeline, and this is the pipeline that runs from the water treatment plant all the way up to the water reclamation facility. The design is complete, and we received the FDE permit for the pipeline. One key note to mention about the pipeline is it's going to be installed via trenchless technology, so all going to be directional drill, no open cutting. So that's to minimize the disruption through the neighborhood. The restoration's minimal. So really the impact through the residents is very minimal. It's how the low-pressure sewer system was installed in the city. And the fourth and final component is the deep injection well modification. The design is 100% complete. We received our permit from FDEP. And basically, it's modifying the existing deep injection well. What we have to do is install an FRP liner. Just due to the salt concentration, the existing steel casing would corrode because of the concentrate we're putting down. So we're going to install a plastic, essentially plastic liner to help, make it last long and get the useful life out of the liner. As part of the modification, we're also relocating the monitoring well for this, and that will be included with the project. So this slide depicts the construction costs, and we broke down the RO facility, which is $18 million, including construction, engineering, and inspection services. The concentrate pipeline and the deep injection well modification shown here are based on the engineer's estimate at this moment. We don't have the bid costs. So once we award the RO facility, the next plan of action is to put the deep injection well out to bid and have that go to under construction next. And then the pipelines, the last thing to go under construction. We wanted to get the facility under construction first because that's the long lead time. It's 2 years. These other projects, the pipeline and the deep well, are expected to last 4 to 6 months. Now, one thing I wanted to mention is the debt service payments for these improvements were included in the 2017 rate study. Costs have increased since that time. So as part of this fiscal year, we will be working on our next rate study. And the intent of this rate study is to present a balanced plan that lives within the standard rate indexing. So not to have a large rate hike as part of this. So we want to live within, our 1 to 3% that the city historically has. And whether we have tools to do that. We've kind of preliminary performed a financial analysis to look at that. And we feel comfortable that our intent, we can meet that. And I'll kind of get into some of those tools in the next couple slides. Funding received to date, we've received almost $3 million between a South Florida Water Management District grant, state appropriations, and principal loan forgiveness through the FDEP SRF program. So what that $3 million that we've received in funding really lessens the burden on the existing customers. And just because we've received $3 million to date doesn't mean our work's done yet. Kind of in the pipeline, we have 3 potential future funding sources. One is a South Florida Water Management District alternative water supply grant that we submitted back in February for about $7 million. Last month in September, we submitted a $4.7 million Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, CDBG mitigation grant. And we actually applied for that grant. There's 3 funding cycles. This is the second cycle. The first cycle, we weren't successful, but we got feedback on kind of what we could work on. We provided supplementary funding to help raise our points. We also, instead of, I thought this was, it's a small change, but kind of creative since it's mitigation and deals with storms. Instead of naming it alternative water supply, it was water treatment plant hardening projects. So all the building and structures that were building up to code and hurricane rated, the roof, the generator building, all that is what we submitted for the grant. So, that will definitely help us get us some more points also. And lastly is the $500,000 state appropriation that we're going for this year. This would be the 4th one we're asking for on this project, and that would cover the concentrate pipeline we're specifically going for that money on. And with that, does anyone have any questions?
Mr. Meyer?
Thank you, Mr. Volker. Are any of those grants contemplated? I know you want to count them before you get them, but when you say that looking forward to another rate study and that the current anticipated costs are in excess of what was in the 2017 rate study, if we were to get these, be successful in these grants and potential other funding, is that part of what makes you feel like we can live within our rate limit, our increased limits? Or
so when we did the preliminary financial analysis, the only one we assumed that looked real promising was the $500,000.
So you didn't- okay.
The 7 million or 4.7, we feel comfortable even if not receiving that, we could still live within the standard rate indexing. And that's our intent, is to do that. Obviously, if we were to be successful in a large sum of money, that just lessens the debt burden on the existing customers, which is what we're going for, to minimize that as much as possible on them, so.
Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner, Vice Mayor?
No
Commissioner
que-
McDonald?
No questions. No, I just wanted to, maybe I wanted to hear a presentation, and also it was a large sum of money. I thought we should have an individual vote on it, so.
Thank you. Mr. Paul, is there anyone online with regard to item number 17?
I'll move approval, Madam Mayor.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Meyer, seconded by Commissioner McDonald. Any members of the public have any comments on item number 17? Thank you, Mr. Volker, for your presentation and for staff that came out. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I almost said Commissioner Kendall. Madam Clerk?
Yes, Vice Mayor Matheson?
Yes.
Commissioner Bruner?
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald?
Yes.
Commissioner Meyer?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Does the commission want to take a break, or you're okay?
If one more
Sounds
leaves,
like
you lose the.
You're already having a little bit of a break,
Yeah.
so
Okay,
maybe
we'll
a
take a
break.
3-minute break or so. We only have 3 people on the, we have 4 people, everybody's gone. We have completed the consent agenda. All items have been voted on. We're now on to item number 21, right-of-way abandonment of a portion of the 11-foot alley as shown on the plat of Dyer Estates. Are all our commissioners in place, all our staff in place? Mr. Mortel, Resolution 106.2021.
This is, excuse me. I'm having a code issue here. There we go. Resolution 106, 2021, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Stuart, Florida, declaring pursuant to Chapter 36 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Stuart, Florida, the intention of the City Commission to abandon and set public hearings on October 25th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. and November 8, 2021 at 4 p.m. in the City Commission chambers to consider the abandonment of certain public right-of-way within the city, being that portion of a platted 11-foot wide alley as shown on the plat of Dyer Estates, more clearly described in Exhibit A attached, and for other purposes.
Thank you. Is staff going to say anything, or city manager? We're just going to talk about the
Staff's ready.
date. Staff, Mr. Reeds?
Yes. Madam Mayor, this is notice to abandon, and this was a condition of approval for the Palmetto Cove RPUD. If you remember, the site is located just off from Palm City Road in between Halpatioke Street and Riverview Street. This is the right-of-way that will be abandoned, 11 feet wide. It is worth $19,000. A privilege fee will be given, a recommended privilege fee of the full amount, $19,000. And the first reading will be on October 25th.
Thank you. Is Mr. Kelly here, or, no? All right, is there any, we're going to make sure everybody knows about this, of course, and they'll all receive notice. So any questions from the board?
I'll move for approval.
I'll second, but I do have a question.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Mr. Meyer?
No.
Matheson, sorry.
Mr. Reeds, can you pull up the diagram that showed the
Ariel?
right there? So my question is on the left side of the screen, just south of the residential lot that's adjacent to the property. Do they get 5.5 feet of this right-of-way? Or have they
No,
been?
the entire right-of-way will be going to Palmetto Cove.
We don't dedicate any of the right-of-way to anyone. When we abandon a right-of-way, all we do, or all the city does, is lifts its claim of right-of-way to the underlying property. The underlying plat and the underlying property presumptively divides it equally 50-50 to the two adjacent property owners.
Yes.
Sometimes, like on a Riverside Drive plat at the end of Palm Beach Road that we abandoned a few years ago, the underlying plat actually had Jeff Doherty getting like 40% and T, I think it was T, I forget who it was, the next door, but he got 60%. And it just happened to be that that's where the road fell on the property. But we don't do deeds
No.
to anybody.
But so what is the underlying plat for this particular piece say?
Palmetto.
You see, if it goes, say it went 50-50, and I understand what you're saying.
Right, that house that's in that lot, you're absolutely right, is going to get their half of the alley for that, whatever, 20 feet into their lot.
See, we're abandoning our claim, but does that house
Whoever
they
owns
be
that lot
entitled-
gets that alley, that portion of it.
to,
Or what, unless the plat's differently, but we're not, we won't have
I
any
mean-
interest in it anymore.
exactly, we're washing our hands. The right-of-way is being abandoned.
Right.
That house is being notified. They could choose to
So at the
sell it
hearing,
or whatever.
at the hearing, I had raised the issue about requiring them to apply for and abandon the entire right-of-way to the next house all the way up to the street, just so the remnant wasn't left, just for the sake of doing it, so that we wouldn't have it anymore. It would have nothing to do with their investment, but the commission chose not to do that. The only reason I brought it up at the hearing was just because it was going to be left over, and I knew nobody was ever going to be cutting between those two houses, but the abandonment application is just the red area for now. And they do it because their property on the, what I would call the south side of Palm City Road, it goes to the end of that. But you're accurate that the house, the small house shown right there with the arrow on it, that property will receive 50% of that red segment up to the lot line, which is right there. Right.
But either way, moving forward, we are abandoning the right-of-way.
We're just lifting our claim, and then whatever underlying division was there will be there.
Okay.
Any other questions?
That is all, Madam Mayor.
Are there any questions from the public on item number 21? Staff, any additional information?
We'll make sure that correction is part of the resolution for first reading on the 25th.
Yeah, and this resolution
This
is
is just
an
to
intent.
notify that
This
we're.
is just
Right.
intent.
Yes. Okay, is this, all in favor? Well, staff we're sending money, so let's call the roll, please, clerk.
Commissioner McDonald?
Yes.
Commissioner Bruner?
Yes.
Commissioner Meyer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Matheson?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Thank you, yes. Next item is item number 22, Tide Waters, Mr. Kembler here. The resolution number 55, 2021.
It's resolution number 55, 2021, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Stuart, Florida, to approve a plat titled Tidewater Court Plat, being a replat of a portion of Bay St. Lucie, with said lands lying in Section 2, Township 38 South, Range 41 East, containing 10 individual lots, approximately 0.1 acres each in size, prepared by Robert F. Kemerson of Velcon Engineering and Surveying LLC, a Florida registered land surveyor and mapper, number 6285, providing an effective date and for other purposes.
Staff,
Good evening, Madam Mayor. Tom Reeds for the record. This is Tidewater Court Plat. Resolution number 5521, Nuris Enterprises LLC, Marcella Kambler, the president. The site's located just west of St. Lucie Boulevard, south of Southeast Ocean. south of the Kingswood townhomes, are the new Ocean Cove with its walking lake, the lake with walking path, and it's approximately 1 acre in size. So some of the LDC requirements, minor development plan for 10 single-family homes on individual lots called the Tidewater Court, located at 892 St. Lucie Boulevard, was received by staff and approved by the City Development Director pursuant to the Stuart Land Development Code. Section 1101.05 requires plat application where a plan document includes the subdivision of land. Any future issuance of development permits shall be made contingent upon approval by the City Commission of the plat conforming to the approved application. And then finally, Section 1101.02C defines a minor development plan as a single-family, multifamily, or duplex residential project of between 3 and 35 units inclusive. So we have the plat, and we have the 10 individual lots that make up Tidewater Court. They will all have to be in size and dimension to meet the minimum requirements of the R3 for single-family development. As I mentioned earlier, a minor development plan has been approved, and staff has reviewed that. There also exists on the site or on the development an easement over the properties that both Fire and Public Works have approved in its dimensions. This is a picture or a aerial conceptual drawing of the site plan. You can see that the single-family homes are, even though that they are close to the front, they still meet the front setbacks. And as I mentioned earlier, this is an easement that goes over the properties. Staff's recommendation is to approve resolution number 55, 2021, plat for Tidewater Court. The applicant, Marcella Cambler, is here to give her short presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Gambler.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you, Marcella Cambler for the record, It's just a piece of the, I mean, this is a plat application. I know normally plat applications are part of your consent agenda, but because this was a straight zoning project and it went through minor site plan approval and minor site plan and administrative approval, your staff deemed that it was important for you to see what the minor site plan looked like. By the way, I do want to thank Kevin and Tom through this process. They've been very professional and responsive. I know that we haven't done straight zoning with someone coming in front of you not asking for more density or not asking for setback changes or not asking for any sort of reduction in a long time, and that's why this project went through the minor site plan approval, other than the fact that it's within your thresholds. This is, I don't know why it's cutting it. It's not the whole plan, but a couple of images. It is a true infill project, cottage lots, very small footprint. The code here requires that 50% of the site remain pervious, which is a higher requirement than within PUDs. And so I'm happy and excited and just trying to bring a project of, the kind of practice what you preach, development I truly believe in, on a site that has been mine for a few years now. I don't know, did the whole plan, this is an aerial, but I don't know why it's just.
Yeah, I can bring up.
But I mean, some of the elements I've brought into this is, a pervious road. These are things you can do only in smaller developments, I guess. Pervious blocks, the elimination of the conventional curb and gutter and just do a valley gutter.
pea gravel and rain gardens and a lot of things that can only be incorporated when you're working in a much more detailed and smaller scale, and you don't have to deal with huge parking lots and things of that sort. So again, this is a little preview of the master site plan. I'm happy to answer any questions, but this is the plat
Any,
application.
anything on those turn-in movements?
Yeah, well, it was reviewed by the city's consultant, Kimley Horn, and approved by them. For the fire, it was approved by the fire chief. On my end, it was signed off by Velkin Engineering. And for waste collection, even though the trucks can freely move, we've discussed just having people haul their garbage can to the street, where we're going to do a nicely designed pad, and it'll save time for the trucks so they don't have to go in 3 times a week into the site.
Okay, any other commissioners have any questions of Ms.
Yes.
Vice Mayor?
I know you and I have talked about the waste collection. I thank you for working with our staff, working on something. I expressed to Ms. Campbell, my biggest concern was some sort of organization method where 10 bins each have their own spot along the street, so that our driver can drive up down St. Lucie Boulevard and not have to get out to get all the bins, and knowing that the HOAs kind of oversee that. They'll have their designated spot. They won't be like one behind another where the driver has to get out while in the middle of the road to reorganize the bins properly. The other concern I'm wondering with is some sort of method so that the easement at the end of the my left side of the screen, where a fire truck is using it to back up in an emergency, for a way to ensure that residents aren't going to park there, so that if there is an emergency scenario, how are you going to keep that, free for a fire truck to use if required?
So there is a condition of approval in the approved minor site plan that requires that I put no parking signs in all those locations. A car could never be parked in a situation to prohibit the fire truck from coming in. If for whatever reason they're there when they have to back out, I'm sure it's a small enough development that, can either get moved, towed. If the car's there, the person should be there to move it. But it's a condition of the approval to have no parking signs.
Is there a condition in there? If not, can we add it that law enforcement has authority to enforce? Without it, they wouldn't be able to do anything with a no parking sign.
It's a private street, if you can do,
That
sure.
that would need to be in the minor plan approval, not on the plat. You can't put that in the plat.
So that would be a 5th condition or something in the minor final site plan approval order?
Yes, we can add, police have the right to go on a private property to enforce
The no parking.
the parking, no parking and any other traffic.
And then, would we have to require a condition for, and I defer to you for some sort of way to organize the bins, location on the street, or working with our,
Can we do conditions on plats? I'm curious.
We don't normally do conditions on plats. What I was going to suggest is that the applicant provide an amended section, little plan, which identified what you're talking about, organizes the layout for the trash bins, and that can then be attached to the minor site plan.
We can do that. I've had discussions with Mr. Rogolino, and this was also their preferred alternative. I still have to come back with a full set of construction documents that need to be approved, and I'm agreeing to doing that right now, and they have to be designed, and I'm sure if we're not doing it correctly, he will let me know.
I'll defer to Mr. Rogalino, really, as long, my goal is for them not to have to get out and rearrange the bins each pickup, basically, and to have it aesthetically pleasing.
It shouldn't be, I mean, it's 10 units. It shouldn't be any different than 10 very small units. It's not a large family that lives in these. These are cottage homes, 18 to 2,100 square feet. There's some large homes on that road that generate 5, 6 bins easily on collection day, so.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Thank you.
The motion for approval in a second. Are there any members of the public who have any comments? This is item number 22, resolution number 55-2021 regarding Tidewater Court plat. Any questions on the Zoom, Mr. Paul?
No, ma'am, not at this time.
Any other questions from the board?
No,
Nope.
but I would like to say that you're right, it is the perfect infill. It's going to be a nice little complex. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nobody has any high questions or anything? No, we're good. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Meyer,
Yes.
Mayor Clark,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Matheson,
Yes.
Commissioner Bruner,
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 23, Osprey Preserve PUD Restoration Plan. Staff?
Good evening, Commissioners. Tom Reitz again for the record. Short presentation for the Osprey Preserve Restoration Plan. The developer, Meritage Homes of Florida, Justin Cook is their division president. The site located just south of Jensen Beach Boulevard on the west side of Green River Parkway. The Osprey Preserve was approved in 2018. They were reviewed for site permit and had a pre-construction meeting, and at some point more of the site was cleared than what was originally intended. You can see that we can see, and I can tell you tonight that the wetlands and the upland preserve on the south and the west side of the site remains intact. This portion of the site was totally cleared. And the preserve, the 25-foot preserve on Green River Parkway and along Jensen Beach Boulevard was cleared. The applicant with Lucido and Associates has submitted a restoration plan. So the estimated trees that were cleared were 170 trees equaling 2,550 dBH. The proposed restoration of trees within the preserve is 407 trees with 1,707 dBH inches. There wasn't room for all the trees to be planted in the remaining preserve. Therefore, 843 inches is left over. Multiplied by the 1.5 ratio factor for mitigation of slash pines, that equals 44,275. You can see in yellow, highlighted in yellow, staff has prepared ratio penalties, if you may, of greater than 1.5, and they go from 1.5 all the way up to 2.5, and you can see those incremental increases. The understory vegetation cleared within the preserve was 42,140 square feet, and the applicant is proposing to restore 42,140 square feet in the form of shrubs. The applicant has also submitted a performance surety bond in the amount of $507,977.74. We have that in our safe in our finance department should the applicant fall short of his proposed restoration promises. With that, staff are recommending, as far as the timing, that the landscape restoration plan be implemented and completed prior to the issuance of the first certificate of occupancy of any building on the site. With that, that concludes staff's presentation. Steve Garrett from Lucido and Associates is here to give his presentation, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Reeds, Mr. Garrett. Unless the staff has any questions.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, Mr. City Manager, and to a fellow Libra, happy birthday, Mr. Mortel. Before I go through a presentation of how we arrived at the restoration plan, I'd like to introduce Mark McFarland with Meritage Homes. He'd like to say a few words for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. For the record, my name is Mark McFarland. I am the Director of Development for Meritage Homes, located in West Palm Beach, Florida. First of all, to the commission, to staff, and residents of the city and the county, what happened at that site, it was an egregious oversight on our part, the part of our contractor, and something we obviously do not do as a normal course of business, and will ensure it will not happen again in any future project we do. I really don't have a lot of explanation as to why it happened. As was mentioned, there were pre-construction meetings. It was mentioned at those meetings about the preservation area and how it was to remain. I actually personally was on the site the day before, walked the surveyed clearing limits, and verified that they were done and in the right place by our surveyor. But by some unknown reason, our contractor removed all of the clearing up to the roadway, and obviously it was a large oversight. In the future, for projects, what we propose to do, or we will do, any similar preservation, be it individual trees or large preserve areas like this, before we send in clearing, at the time of silt fence probably, we will wrap the area in orange blaze fence with signs, stating that it's preserve area and not to be removed. So that is an action that we are going to put upon ourselves in our future plans to make sure this does not happen again. Again, this was a very unfortunate incident, not our normal course of business. We have multiple projects in South Florida region and even on the west coast of Florida, and we take this very seriously. We worked very hard with Lucido and staff to come up with what we think is a very reasonable, restoration of the buffer to get it back to its previous state, and hopefully we think even better. There, like said, there's about $500,000 worth of trees, and granted, money doesn't solve everything, but in this case, we do hope it will make a buffer that will, Steve will go through some plan and show you some pictures of what it will look like. But it is definitely something that we are taking seriously and will do what we can to remedy. With that, I'm going to let Steve come back up and talk about the methodology and how he came up with the plan, and then I'll be available for questions, obviously, afterward if you'd like.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening again. Steve Garrett with Lucido and Associates, representing Meritage. Go back. Also with us tonight, with Mark and I, is Kevin Valinsky. He's with Lucido and Associates as well, and it would be unjust if I didn't give him credit for all the heavy lift on preparing these plans and working with Doug Fitzwater as well from our office. So if you have any hard-hitting questions, I'm going to bring up Kevin, and he can answer those as well. So as Mr. Reitz identified, the area shown in red is the frontage, both along Jensen Beach Boulevard and Green River Parkway. It's about 0.97, just under an acre, that was supposed to be retained, actually, and exist as a buffer to insulate Osprey Preserve from those two roadways. So the buffer originally pre-impact had two functions, or really it was designed for with the intent of both retaining the existing vegetation that was there. That existing vegetation consisted primarily of saw palmetto probably 4, 6, 8 feet tall. Fairly nice, mature saw palmetto in large clumps. And although the saw palmetto didn't cover 100% of the ground area within the buffer, I would say a majority of it was covered with saw palmetto. And then we had quite a number of slash pines that were there as well. And as Tom highlighted in his presentation, the tree survey identifies per city code any slash pines, softwoods, and or hardwoods, but slash pines in particular that are 8 inches or greater. And we had 3 of those. We had 3 of them along Jensen Beach Boulevard. Those unfortunately were removed, but they were meant to be retained there. So we had the 3 existing slash pines, we had the saw palmetto, and then in addition to that, the plan that the commission approved for Osprey Preserve, our landscape plan originally, was to augment and supplement that existing vegetation to meet some of the on-site mitigation requirements. So when you look at the landscape plans for these areas, and before you tonight, you'll see 2 plant lists. The first plant list, and I'll highlight that, but the first plant list is that original mitigation and planting that was going to go into this buffer without any impacts. And then there's a second plant list that is specific to the mitigation or the restoration plan for the project that is post-impact. This is a typical cross-section, really looking towards the west. Jensen Beach Boulevard's on the right hand of the screen. You got the existing right-of-way, and then you have the proposed preserve or now restoration area there. To note, there is, and then you see the townhome and the rear lots of those of the townhome product, and there's a 2 to 3 foot high retaining wall that goes along the back of those lots to achieve the proper finished floor elevation of the residences. But as you can see in the cross section, you see understory and canopy, and when I get to the plans, you'll see that our intent and our proposal in this restoration is 100% of the understory. So every square foot that was impacted is being planted with native understory, as well as the canopy as well. And you can see the density that is expected within that. This cross-section is approximately at time of installation relative to the canopy as well. And then I won't go in too much detail on these plans, but just to highlight this series of plans going from the top all the way down really goes from the westernmost portion of the buffer along Jensen Beach Boulevard and goes, as you go to the right, you're going east along Jensen Beach Boulevard. The middle image is Jensen Beach Boulevard. As you go in right at the right-hand side, that is the turn as it heads south along Green River Parkway. And this is just the understory. So as you can see, 100% of the square footage that was impacted is being planted in its entirety with native understory, large shrub materials. And then in addition to that, the canopy that goes into that same area is also done in the same fashion. And as Mr. Reitz had pointed out, so we had 170 trees that we calculated were impacted that weren't noted on the tree survey because they weren't of size to be counted and protected. We approximated that. Obviously, there wasn't a tree survey that identified all the saw palmetto and the slash pine that existed that didn't meet that criteria. So how did we do it? Well, thank goodness there's Google Street View and some pretty decent aerial photography. So what we did, and what Kevin really painstakingly did, was we went literally foot by foot using Google Street View and the aerials and did our best to approximate the number of trees that were there pre-clearing. And so we estimated about 170 trees, and then we assigned 10 inches to each of those trees. Now, I know you're very well aware, if it's 8 or greater, it's on a tree survey. All of these were definitely under 8 inches, but we assigned 10 inches per tree. 1, because it's a restoration plan and a mitigation plan, and 2, if we missed a tree that was in a line of sight behind another tree, we wanted to logically compensate for that. So again, every 2 10-inch trees basically provide for another tree that would have been at the required criteria. So we feel it was very conservative and realistic as a methodology to quantify what has been lost there. And then through that exercise, the 2,550 inches that were required as mitigation through that calculation, we or providing all of those except for 843. That 843 inches we translated or calculated back into a monetary amount per city code, and that's where we arrived at the $44,275. With that, I'd be happy to answer any specific questions relative to the landscape plans.
I have a few questions. Steve, it looks like you guys worked really hard to get the trees that you plan on, the replacement trees, how tall will they be as opposed to the original trees, as far as height?
I would guess, and again, we measure DBH basically on the existing trees and not height in the survey. But I believe we had the 3 pines that were there, and then for most of the site, they range between 8, 12, 14. I think we had maybe some 16 inches pines.
There were some pretty tall trees.
They are.
And it's going to take a long time to replace for those trees to grow up that high.
Yes, sir. So what we are proposing, nothing we can purchase or the landscape contractor can purchase is going to match what was there in those taller or larger DBH trees. What we are proposing are the slash pines are coming in at a minimum of 16 feet of height, laurel oaks at 12, and then we have a continuous 10-foot high buttonwood hedge that runs the entire length of the retaining wall. So from the retaining wall in, that first, in fact, I can show you. Where the retaining wall is, right to the right of the retaining wall, that's a solid 10-foot green buttonwood, and then the rest of the landscaping occurring between that and Green River Parkway. But you're absolutely correct. There's no way to match that same height.
Yeah, because this site's had a long history of first I think it was like 2017 we approved single-family homes, and then it became townhomes in 2018, and I wasn't here for the approval of the townhomes, but was for and so I pulled up the tree survey from one of those approvals, and I guess that didn't have enough information for you on it, for knowing what was there, because I was looking at it, it looks like there's some 16-inch, a bunch of bigger trees that were in there, so.
Within the balance of the property itself, yes, there were. In the buffer area itself, the 25 feet.
Okay, it looks like you're in the buffer, but it's hard to tell, so,
Yes, sir.
Okay. And when will they start planting these trees and have this restoration completed?
For those questions, I'm going to hand it back over
Okay.
to Mark, and he can probably answer the majority of your other questions. Be happy to answer any technical
Okay.
Good question. As a normal course of business, after we complete our land development activities, utilities, roads, and things like that, we will immediately go into planting our, not only this retention area or buffer area, but the rest of our landscaping that we will have also. Because at that time, we'll have irrigation available to us and things. So it would probably be after the first of the year,
Are
January.
you using this buffer area for any type of staging at this point?
No,
No.
it is blocked off for use right now.
So theoretically, you could get your underground work done and redo and have this buffer replanted prior to starting vertical construction?
We had hoped we would wait until when we get our pond in place and have our irrigation available to us, so we would have irrigation water. Obviously with that many plantings going in at first, it's going to take some water to make sure they survive early on. So that's what our original plan was, and why we have a bond in place also to ensure that we do plant.
But I mean, it could be, all that needs to be done prior to your vertical construction, correct? Anyways?
Yes, it does.
So
Yes.
you could theoretically have it planted before you start vertical construction?
Starting vertical construction, no, but as Mr. Reitz pointed out, as Mr. Reitz pointed out, having it done before the first use and occupancy permit fits into that schedule.
I understand, but that's not where I'm going.
Yeah.
So, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Meyer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Okay, I have some big picture things and some specifics that are going to touch on staff and the applicant as well. Okay, so big picture. Thank you for falling on the sword. This is a terrible mistake, but I understand that mistakes happen, but it's a terrible mistake. And I think overall, I I want to find a way for us to get this replanted as fast as possible. I think that your palette, the design, is a very good one, and I want to see it happen. My larger conversation I'd like to have with my colleagues is sort of how we want to approach this in terms of, you know, I appreciate that they've been working with staff to come to us and say, we're going to use the code and the mitigation plan of the code to replace, because that's basically the only tools we have. However, right now, the proposal is basically as if this were going to be a tree mitigation as a normal course of business in the PUD and replacing it per code. There's no reflection of, and I know it's at enormous additional expense to you that you weren't planning on incurring. However, to us, to the trees that were there, to the people nearby, there's no extra penalty on this. It's truly just meeting code with mitigation, and I have a problem with that.
If I could just chime in for 1 second too. Tonight's matter is a presentation. If you guys are going to declare a breach of the PUD, we would have to come back for a penalty hearing, like a code enforcement hearing that would take place, because that's not, like a breach of the PUD is not noticed for tonight. It was more of a presentation. I just pointed out as a point of reference.
Yeah, and I think the longer we do that, the longer it takes to get the trees replanted. So I'm not really looking down breach right now. But what I'd like to talk about, I'd like to talk about sort of, you know, is just replacing to one mitigation per the code, 100% mitigation, is that sufficient? The second question specifically is, and I saw that the table that staff had presented before for the mitigation, possible mitigation scenarios with the financial component. I see, it looks to me, and I apologize, we met on Friday. I hadn't had a chance to dive in. I did that, and we met on Friday. I hadn't had a chance to dive into the numbers yet. I spent all weekend, and I kept coming up with a higher number for the tree fund contribution than what was proposed in the plan. And that's because what it appears has happened here, and you've got it as well, Tom, is that we're lifting that equation right out of Municode, out of the code. I'm looking at it on Municode. And there's a huge problem there. That 0.5, okay, let's just walk through it really quick. You guys have, on your plan, you have 843 inches remaining that you can't fit on the plan. 843 inches is how much you're proposing to pay us. 1.5 is the calculation for you got to replace 50% more inches if it's a slash pine. Well, you've already calculated the 1.5 up at the top. So you're doubling that. But then, so that leaves us at 1265 inches. Then you divide it by 2.5 inches, which is the minimum diameter breast height for a tree, which is fine. So, or breast width. So that's fine, that number's fine. So we've got 506. So basically what we've just done is we've already multiplied the total inches by 1.5. We've done it again, but then that 0.5, 506 times 0.5. In the table, in the code, that 50% should not be applied because that 50% is meant to say the plan, the mitigation cannot be more than half of the total required replanting. So you've just cut the contribution in half. You can't, because you've already replanted more than half of the trees. We have to take that half out. If you can, I don't know if it's easy for us to pull up Municode somehow on here, but those numbers mean the first number, 843, is the total inches to remove, or in this case, to replace. So times 1.5, that's the total inches to be replaced. We're dividing that by 2.5, which is the minimum size to be replaced. That 50%, that 0.5, that's 50% mitigation to pay into city tree fund. That is exactly from the code, but that's not having what you have to do. That is the limit of what you can provide. I don't know if I'm making sense to anybody, but when I do the numbers, I'm coming up with 50, more than $50,000 in replacement because the numbers are off. I guess what I'm trying to say is, and maybe we don't need to do this up here, but we need to redo these calculations and look through our code again. Just to get to the bare minimum of 100% mitigation, we need more money based on our code.
I'm going to trust your numbers.
So,
And then, just to further complicate things, on Municode, you multiply the total number of trees to plant by 175, not dollars, but 175% of Plant Finder wholesale. So I don't buy trees often, but $175 for a tree, to me, doesn't seem like 175% of Plant Finder wholesale for the replacement tree. I could be wrong, but it also seems like it was a copy and paste error. So suffice it to say, I want to make sure we have all of our numbers right and that we're getting the proper amount of money back. And again, I'm sorry to drop this bomb here because truly this was like me doing these numbers a million times all weekend. But specifically, we've got to get this worked out a little bit better because the numbers that I'm running are higher than the 275 proposed, and that's still with us saying that we're going to accept just replacing everything and not going above and beyond. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Staff or Mr. Mortel, are you saying that we just need to just discuss this? Maybe there's nothing, we can't make any major.
When I read the agenda item, there is no resolution attached to it, so I
Yes, sir.
presumed it was a presentation.
Yes, sir.
If the commission, you could take the action to declare, based upon the presentation, that you believe the matter is in breach, and direct staff to treat it as a code enforcement or bring it back for a hearing in front of the commission. You could accept the presentation, or you could give your comments and direct the development director to go back with Mr. Garrett and schedule another presentation for the next meeting, which again would be to see if it was a palatable resolution to you guys without declaring a breach. I just mentioned that if we are going to do any kind of actual action, it would have a due process related to a breach to it.
This may seem off subject, but how's Joe Lee doing? Has he had a chance to review this? It seems like he would be one to.
He doesn't normally review that because it's a part of the development process, so we wouldn't review this for.
He's our numbers expert, though.
Yeah, he's our finance director, but he wouldn't.
Well, we count the trees.
But-
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Meyer.
I just wanted to say, I don't want to do breach because that means we're going to be waiting a hell of a long time for any replanting, and who knows, maybe what
It
I.
also causes them a lot of hardship, too.
Well, I'm not trying to.
No, I agree. I don't want to do
cause
breach either. I
hardship.
just say
I want to
that
make this
it's-
right.
Right. The solution
So-
is better to
so-
solve it.
So maybe another option is, maybe one direction is, like I said, I feel good about the replanting plan. I think we need to figure out the additional amount to be paid into the tree replacement fund. That's another conversation, but I am fine with the other stuff in there. And so maybe what we can do, if it's possible, is provide the direction that we approve the plan, the planting plan, but that development and the commission still work on.
Go ahead.
Madam Mayor, I agree with Commissioner Meyer. I think the plan is very good. I think Steve and his team over at Lucido, you guys did a great job of trying to fix this. But if the trees would not have been taken down in the first place, the buffer would have shielded the construction, and it would have. So that's why I believe the buffer needs to be replaced prior to vertical construction.
I agree with that 100%. I think, there's two things here. It's time and money. And time just got washed away for all the residents. So as far as getting it replaced, I agree with Commissioner McDonald that should be absolutely top priority. But the other thing in my mind to do with time, which I kind of, the numbers aren't throwing me off as much as the size of the trees. And it doesn't need to be every single tree, but after what I and Commissioner McDonald saw with live oaks that are 16-inch diameter at breast height, I need to see a certain balanced number of mature trees. And I know it can be done because our city staff has done it here. And what I mean by mature trees would be that, 8 to 10-inch diameter trees, so that the residents aren't waiting on the time factor as much. And that's the issue, is that we removed a lot of those mature trees, and city residents don't have another 5 years, 10 years to wait for those trees to get larger. So I'd like to see, not every single one, but an equal amount on the east and west and the north and south of trees in that 8 to 10-inch range. Which, I can't believe can't be done.
Well, I would like to respond to that, and also to Commissioner McDonald, your statement about planting before starting vertical construction. And I'll answer that one first, if you don't mind. As the normal course of construction for almost any home builder, we start model homes while our land development activities are going on. So actually, for this project, we were going to start vertical construction about 3 weeks ago, until, about 4 weeks ago, actually, until this incident was brought up and a hold was put on our vertical construction, like rightfully so. So holding our vertical construction would be a significant impact to our normal course of business.
So it was a significant impact to our community.
I understand, and I think the plan that we've provided is a step in that right direction to mitigate that, which also goes into what Commissioner Matheson said. And one thing that we had worked up with our landscape company was, there's 19 laurel oaks, and I think they were proposed at 3-inch.
Yes.
They'd be about 10 to 15 foot height, 12 foot height. We can double that caliper to 6-inch. They become about 22 to 25 foot trees, all 19 of them. The big thing about adding more trees is, as it was said already, that area is packed. We can't add more. But to take 19 of the laurel oaks that are existing and spread equally throughout that and make them, almost twice as tall is something we can do. And, we can rerun the numbers and, make them correct to what was proposed. So that would be what I would, recommend or suggest and hope that we could work forward to is, planting our trees at a time when they can be irrigated properly, allowing us to move forward without a use and occupancy permit though, but at least let us start our construction so that the timing will work out, and then, work out our impact fee or the donation based on the new plan and based on a better understanding, I guess, of the numbers.
So you still have, that would satisfy me with the laurel oaks. The slash pines, though, can you not source them out larger than 3-inch?
Our landscaper said he was struggling with larger slash pines and the longevity of them. To get bigger trees, he said they're harder to make sure they stay. Oaks are a different story. But the slash pines were a little bit more difficult to get bigger. And plus, they frankly don't have a lot of top to them, spread. The oaks have a larger canopy that will take up more of that.
Yes.
Above everything else.
So can you describe to me your normal construction process? So when would you start digging the pond?
Well,
which could be used for irrigation?
the pond is done now, actually. It's done, our earthwork out there is predominantly done. And our utility contractor is starting all the underground stuff, which is about 60 days to do the water, sewer, stormwater pipe.
So we've got the pond done.
Yep.
60
So what we
days.
basically need is, that underground utility work done. Then we'll pave our roads, and when that is done, we can put the well in and then run the appropriate piping from there without interfering all of the other pipe and underground utilities that are in the area over to over to this area for the irrigation. So sometime in the December timeframe, mid-December, late December, is when irrigation should be going in. So it's after we put all the other underground piping out there, so we know where it is. It's the smallest stuff and easiest to avoid everything else.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the board regarding this Osprey Preserve restoration plan?
It feels like we're still trying to.
I'm siding with Commissioner McDonald, really, that the top priority for us and our residents needs to be to get the trees planted. Can be content with increasing the size of the laurel oaks to what was proposed, but I just have a hard time understanding if the pond is dug, that you can't put a temporary pump in for temporary irrigation and get everything planted and work around that as fast as possible.
Yes, I mean, we also need that little retaining wall that was talked about earlier. That has to be done before, because the close proximity.
But you would have had to do, if the trees would have been there, you would have had to do the retaining wall anyway, with the
Yeah,
trees
we would have
there.
had to clear back a little bit, but the new plan has that buttonwood hedge right up next to the fence, or up to the wall. That was not planned before.
Can I ask?
Yes.
Okay, so I like the idea of the bigger oaks. Can we, in order to kind of move forward with getting those planted, could we say maybe we won't seek additional, like for them to pay additional dollars into the tree replacement fund once we get it calculated properly? And in exchange, they can plant before vertical construction, if we can give you that?
Or how about at least, the planting is phased in? Like the oaks are done. Is that a possibility? So that you're keeping, you're doing your larger trees first, managing irrigating them, while you're doing your retaining wall and phasing in the rest of the planting. Our goal is to not wait till, the first of the year to have this planted.
Well, because it'll be after the first year if they wait till vertical construction is done.
Well, it's not until vertical construction's done. It's until our land development activities are done. In the normal course of what we're doing, it would be right around first half of January when the landscaping would be installed for the entire community. So it's not vertical construction done. It's, like I said, we normally start our models early so that when my land development activities are done, landscaping is done, the model is done, so we can, assume sales. So that's kind of how we time everything. So to have the buffer done first, before we even start vertical is a little bit out of our norm, I'll say.
Okay, only a little bit though. So
Well,
This is out of our
3
norm.
months is a significant.
But also clearing land like this
I
is
totally
outside of the norm too.
It's out of our
I agree
norm
with
as well.
Yep.
And, well, out of your norm. So,
But some type of a phased approach where we can plant the oaks, and then, we could start.
if maybe we could have 2/3 of the plantings done prior to vertical construction starting, I could probably live with something like that. But we'd have to, but I think that it would be good for y'all to figure out that phasing and come back to us. Not, I don't think you can figure it out on the fly, but
Yeah, I'm open to phasing, but I know my issue is the normal approach is kind of out the window for us.
I agree.
For the residents. I've had numerous phone calls now about
I've
it.
had so many complaints about this.
So,
I will say also and again, I understand the buffering, and we've removed the buffer, and we have the visual impact now, but we also have a bond in place to ensure the work gets done. So, I mean,
so we've got the money, we're just working on the time.
yes, but if we plant before we can start vertical, is the bond still necessary, or?
Once everything is planted to the plans, I don't know, I defer to our city attorney and development department if the bond's still necessary.
The bond is to ensure the trees. It would seem to me that if the trees are in, there's no
Once
need
Yeah.
for a
Once
bond.
the trees are in, whenever that is, but, so,
Yeah, I don't need the bond if they're going to do it first. I mean, the point of the bond was to promise that they were going to do it.
right, yeah.
But
so-
yeah, honestly, what's more important for us is that we're allowed to start vertical so that our buffering and our initial model homes are done at the same time. I mean, placing the bond was what we did to allow us hopefully to that was our effort to allow us to start our vertical construction before planting the buffer, was that way you had the teeth to penalize us or hold us accountable, I'll say, for not putting or for taking the buffer down, but you have those teeth to make sure we put them up before we can move forward with selling homes out there. So that was our intention of the bond.
Can we split vertical construction into the construction of the model and before you do any others, or do you need to begin all of them in some phase?
We typically would start like in another month. We would start our production homes, I'll call them, not our models. So I would probably be able to make that work, yes. But, and I still go back to the use and occupancy permit. That's, holding that until we get our planting done is that works. Definitely, it's still a little bit early probably, but I'll make that work. But the model is, I'll make that work too.
For me, it's not waiting till the vertical construction. It's waiting for 60 days till you have all your infrastructure and roads in and everything else, whereas I'm looking more at, okay, you can do the vertical construction. I'm looking to have the plants planted and a temporary irrigation system set up as soon as possible. If we do have the bond, I'm okay with if you can rally your team fast enough to do a vertical construction. What I want to see is those plants in the ground and some sort of way that they stay alive, that we don't have to wait 60 days for.
How about give me 1 month, allow us to start our model home within the next week or so. Give me 1 month to start planting, to start planting, to get our temporary irrigation set up, and then again, then we'll have all of our plantings done before use and occupancy. And if in 1 month time we don't have, we haven't started, you can, stop work order.
As a point of reference, if you guys directed the development director to sit down with the applicant or their agent and to come back and do a presentation at the next meeting,
I think
in the
that'd be
meantime,
better.
they're not in breach, so they could technically pull a permit to start construction. If at the next meeting, you found it unsatisfactory and you declared breach, in breach, they could technically pull the permit and they wouldn't be able to pull any other permits until the breach was resolved. Just like in a code enforcement, if
there's-
someone's fence is in code enforcement, they can't come in and pull a permit to build a porch on their house until they bring the fence into compliance. So it would effectively stop them at that point. Right now, there is no breach, no one's declared a breach, they're kind of falling on the sword, as you pointed out, Commissioner
But they
Meyer.
have a stop work order.
But the building inspector entered a stop work order that he has the exclusive authority to lift tomorrow if in fact he gets direction from you guys or he feels like lifting it for what,
I don't-
if the problem's rectified. So you guys could leave, by the way, you could leave the stop work order for 2 weeks and come back in 2 weeks.
That's
or-
what I think that we should leave the stop work order in place. have direct staff to meet with, I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Mr. McFarland. Mark
McFarland, yes, Mr. McFarland, and, to work out they've heard our comments, work out a plan that hopefully is acceptable, because I know that you guys want to get moving, but at the same time, we have our priorities. And then from there, hopefully we can put this thing to bed and be done with it. But I think that, the Steve and everybody from Lucido did a great job on the plan for, I think, the planting. I'm not the tree expert, but the guys that do like the trees, do the tree stuff, seem to think it's a pretty good plan. So
Can you do that in 2 weeks? Or you will
work out in some sort of phasing plan.
My
and-
boss will read me the riot act, but.
Well, you can have your boss call me. I mean.
No, no. I'm just saying.
So, I mean, it's.
If it's 2 weeks, I will make it work, and we will be back here. I mean, if you have a meeting in less time than 2 weeks, we'll be
25th.
back before that, but.
On the 25th, we're going to get an update and see how far off we can be with plants going in the ground, basically.
Yes.
And fix the
Mortel.
math.
Do we need a motion for this?
Can they plant with a stop work order?
They can do site work. They
Yeah.
can do not do
It's rectifying code problems, so the building inspector can allow them to take actions that solve the non-compliance.
Cure, yeah. Mr. Martell, are we satisfied? Do we need any other action or any other comments from our commissioners to staff? Staff knows
That's
what
up
they're
to you
supposed to
guys.
do? Developer knows what they're supposed to do?
Yes, ma'am.
Developer knows the ultimate,
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
I just want to make
You're
sure
aware
I'm
of the
clear.
ultimate.
So 2 weeks, we'll come back for the next commission meeting. In the meantime, the stop work order stays in place. You're going to mobilize and begin planting according to this plan, plus the larger oaks.
Well, I
Yes.
can't guarantee I'm gonna mobilize starting it. I don't know how quickly my landscaper can get all the plants and everything
Right.
like that. I'll put all of that in order, or
Right.
in motion, and in 2 weeks, I'll let you know where I stand.
Okay, that's what I was going to say.
But,
We're not
yeah,
expecting,
It's gonna probably take me more than 2 weeks to get the
we're not
pump and
expecting
irrigation
to
set
see
up.
plants in there in 2
Yeah.
weeks, but we'll meet again, and then we'll have the rest of these details on timing and credits and funds worked out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
With regard to staff, I'm not sure if it's staff or the developer, but just on the agenda, there's a misspelling on the word rider. And I know that we have the agreement, we have the performance bond and some other things as attachments. It's B3, item B3. Rider. So I just wanted to just be sure that our agenda item has a good, has a proper language. We can't change it again, but at least Mary, our clerk will know that I'm offering that as a correction. Are we aware of what we're doing?
Yes.
Everybody okay? City manager okay? City attorney okay? Is the developer fully aware? And staff knows how they approach? I know that Mr. Nicolosi is not here, but I'm sure that Mr. Freeman will talk to the building department.
Yes, Mayor.
Thank you for it, Mr. Nicolosi is here.
You're fine. Next item.
Thank you for
Don't
your,
pull that stop work order.
city manager will deal with it, thank you. Thank you for your time,
We need a date.
Mr. McCartland, Mr. Lucido. Is there any question from the public?
I'm not an engineer, but if he hired, his company hired someone to do the job, and he said he was there the day before and told him what to do, and then the gentleman with the bulldozer did what he did, then his company can sue the guy that was running the bulldozer. And when you plant trees like at Shepherd's Park, on East Ocean Boulevard, there's such a thing as a water truck. Why can't he go ahead, because like you said, letters to the editor and all, there is no reason that they can't start planting, because there's plenty of nurseries, get it in and have water trucks there and let them water it, and then when he gets his pumps and that going, his company, I'm sorry, I'm not picking on just you, it's your company. No, it's not fair to the public, because I got a lot of questions. I don't know why people keep talking to me about it. I have nothing to do with your job. But I did go up and look. It is. It's a mess. No. You do the crime, you do the time. His company did. He says it's not his company, it's the people they built, they hired. So it's just, oh, it wasn't my fault, it's his fault. It's like, no, Mom, I did it. Jean did it. Honey did it. You blame it on everyone. The plants should go in now, get a water truck, and water those plants. And yes, I agree with you. Mature plants, like we did. Look at those beautiful trees that you planted over in Shepherd's Park. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McBride. Thank you, City Manager and staff for preparing this item for discussion, and I think that we have covered what we need to cover, and we'll see this in 2 weeks. Mr. Mortel?
I don't know.
We're asking for it to be scheduled in 2 weeks and for staff to work out some kinks, and the developer is fully aware of the potential of a breach or anything else. Thank you. Let's go on to item number 24.
Item number 24 was a request on the city attorney's behalf to simply notify and schedule a attorney-client meeting on 4 cases. It is tentatively scheduled for 4:30 p.m. Just prior to our next meeting. I would put the tree case on it, but we can't until we're actually in litigation, so I won't be talking about that one in it.
Hey.
But anyway. Anyway, it's simply to discuss the status of those cases and consult with the commission. It won't be very long. It's just some brief outlines to bring you up to speed on what's going on in all 4 of the cases mentioned.
Mr. Mortel, could you please explain to the public very briefly what a shade meeting is?
It's an attorney-client meeting so that we can discuss those 4 cases that are pending. It'll be in private. We'll start at 4:30, and I will take any questions the commission has. They'll be transcribed, and when each case is closed, the transcription of the proceedings will be made public or available to the public for people, that somebody is interested in reading them. But they will be confidential until each respective case is complete.
Okay.
Thank you, and we're following Florida statutes 286.0118. Thank you so much.
Yeah, the purpose for tonight's notice was just to make sure that that calendar time meets with your guys' schedules. I mean, that's really it. And so if there's any problem with that date, let me know. Otherwise, we'll schedule it for the next meeting and we'll move forward.
Thank
No
you.
problem. 4:30 on the 25th.
Thank you. Is there any other matters? Move for adjournment. We're adjourned. Thank you.